Greetings, fellow cinephiles. Tiki here,
I'm Blue Dragon 5.
and welcome to the Ex Post Facto, where we dig deep into the career of one of cinema's great modern auteurs. Though he's well known for a certain bat, he has plenty of other tricks up his sleeve. From backwards narrative to theatrical sleights of hand, from layers of dream logic to a triptych of time.
Christopher Nolan has become one of the most skilled directors this side of Dunkirk. And this month, we celebrate his most original achievements. Start spinning that top. It's time for Nolan-Vember.
Womp! Womp! And tonight we're talking about The Prestige. Are you watching closely, Dragon?
Yes, I am.
All right. So, The Prestige is a really interesting film in Nolan's catalog for me because, of course, it came after the height of Batman Begins. I basically saw it just on the whole. I really like Batman Begins. I hadn't even seen Memento yet at the point that I saw this film, and so the only thing I knew about Nolan was Batman Begins. And I remember as a kid, like I was probably about 14 years. What year was this, Dragon?
2006.
2006. So I was about 15 years old, 15 going on 16. So I was still a kid, I was still like maybe like a freshman in high school, sophomore at most.
A little wet behind the ears.
So I did not fully grasp this film when I first saw it. And honestly, this film left me a little frustrated because of how complex it was. It wasn't until I saw Inception where I was like, okay, this is like a little bit more accessible to me. I understand dream logic more than I understand the whole, spoiler alert for everyone here. We're going to be spoiling the heck out of this movie the whole time. But, I could wrap my mind around the dream logic of Inception a lot more than I could the logic of the clones and the Teslas and everything like that in this movie. Now as an adult looking back on it, I gotta say, Dragon, we're looking at a nice three-way horse race between Dunkirk, this, and Inception as my favorite Nolan movie. And I gotta say, I probably won't know for sure until I rewatch Inception, and it's really exciting. It's like they're all competing for my number one spot because this is genius, man. Like looking back on it through adult lenses as someone who's now kind of gone through the ringer of film appreciation and film school and all that, and just on my own time, just gotten around to watching a lot more classic movies in my time now. This is just the structure of this. I mean, Nolan once again takes structure and just runs with it with this whole 3-act magician's trick thing. And Dragon, it's just I think first and foremost, the thing that we need to commend Nolan for on this one is that unlike, say it with me, Dragon, Dunkirk. Unlike Dunkirk, this has the human element to it, man, and you feel it. I think this might be perhaps leaving the Batman movies out of it just because I feel like the Batman movies, in a good way, are kind of like a weird outlier of Nolan's filmography in general. But leaving the Batman movies out of this, I think this might be the most emotionally resonant of all of Nolan's movies. It's still a pretty cold movie, but you feel the motivations really hard in this one, the back and forth. And so that, along with just the structure of it, I gotta say, Dragon, this is a good, compelling, top mark movie for me now. And I do think it's a step above Memento. I think Memento is more of a one-trick pony than this is. I love Memento, but I feel like this is a little bit above and beyond. The question is that Inception, I feel like, is a more accessible movie for sure. But is it going to hold up, or am I going to look at Inception, which, I used to watch a lot. I used to watch Inception maybe once a month or so for the first couple of years after it came out, but I haven't watched it since then because honestly, I kind of burned myself off on it a little. But the question is Inception in its accessibility going to be holding up more than The Prestige in its complexity. And Dragon, as we get into the home stretch of Nolan-Vember, I can't wait to find out. It's exciting. All right, what do you have to say for this one?
Oh boy, the prestige. Oh, the prestige of it all. Anyway, no, it's So of course, I think we're a little sympathetic here. Of course, I was in the post Batman Begins boom for this one. It's like you're after after Begins. Like, oh look, another Nolan film with Christian Bale, and Michael Caine. What a world!
Michael Caine was the person who drew me to this one in general.
I'm saying it's like not only do you have Christian Bale, Michael Caine, you also have Hugh Jackman. Like, oh my God, you have you have two guys who are also known for playing comic book characters, and it's a Christopher Nolan movie, and it's about magic, man. Rarely do you see that combination. So that was definitely my that kind of what brought me to The Prestige. Of course, in kind of the waiting period between Begins and Dark Knight, and so on and so forth. So that's how I kind of found The Prestige. I tell you, The Prestige, it's an exceptional film. Probably the best film on magic / kind of magicians I've ever seen. I want to say objectively it might be the best, but I haven't seen all the movies. I'm just gonna from what I've seen, best movie on magicians ever. I mean, I
would second that for me. Yeah.
I think this film really is.
You remember the kind of like speaking to the meta narrative of this, Dragon, really quick. Do you remember how this movie and The Illusionist were kind of like the rival magicians movies?
Well, technically, they were. I was going to get to this during the commentary, but
okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, there were like this is the year there were three magic movies or three magician.
That's what I'm saying, and I think it's.
Yeah.
What else? Go ahead.
Yeah, this, The Illusionist, and technically Scoop.
I'm sorry, what now?
Scoop. It was a Woody Allen movie with, oddly enough, had Hugh Jackman and Scarlett Johansson in it.
Okay, well, you know what? That one I feel like is kind of like the Green Party nomination here. I feel like
I mean, look, I'm just telling. I'm saying I'm bringing it up for the novelty factor of like, oh my God, they were also in that movie as well. Hey, what do you know?
But The Prestige and The Illusionist, Dragon, look, I've only seen The Illusionist once, but I feel like The Prestige holds up a lot more. People talk about it a lot more.
I saw the other Illusionist. I saw the animated Illusionist, not the Edward Norton one.
Wait. What animated Illusionist?
I'm come on, T. You know the animated Illusionist. You know, the one with, it was nominated for the Oscar. Like, well, not it was nominated for the animated Oscar back then. God, it was either 2010 or 2011. It was basically about this old man who was a magician. It was practically a silent movie. It was animated. Doesn't ring any bells.
Was it a movie that was literally called The Illusionist?
Called The Illusionist. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you typed in The Illusionist, maybe they took out the point being another illusionist movie with illusionist in the title, but it was animated. All
right, you know what? We don't have time to go down this road. I don't remember it, but anyways.
And it was about magic, as you can probably ascertain. Anyway, back to my thoughts on this movie. So that's the thing. So this film, what's really great about this movie, this is a film about revenge and obsession, and it's done so well. This is also Nolan venturing into an adapted material. As in, Nolan he didn't come up with the idea for this one. He adapted this from a novel. And it's also, but at the same time, he's also really making it his own, especially stylistically, which is kind of what we're here to praise. Especially, it feels remarkably personal to Nolan. Despite there's really no direct evidence to suggest this is a personal movie for him. But again, it's debatably probably the most human movie Nolan's ever made. Kind of raw and human, not like uplifting, kind of a human movie. It's more like people are flawed, and this is kind of again with the obsession and all that sort of themes.
Yeah.
It's a movie about kind of struggles and sacrifice and kind of playing to an audience, and just something remarkable. And of course, as you can probably guess, the big thing for Nolan with this movie is how playing to an audience in the capacity of a performer also equates to cinema and being a filmmaker playing to an audience, all that sort of stuff. It is personal Nolan in that regard, I suppose. That's kind of why I'm making the leap that might have been a personal movie for him, despite him not kind of being there from the get-go of this idea. It must have struck him in some way. Anywho, little dash of background here just for what gets us the movie. Little hair of background.
All right.
So 1995, novelist by the name Christopher Priest. Oddly enough, I knew a comic writer by the name of Christopher Priest. This is, I believe, the first black editor in comics, or at least one of the first. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the first black editor in comics that wrote some Deadpool. Not the same guy at all, which kind of threw me for a loop when I looked into it. Different Christopher Priest, just ironic name. Anyway, so Christopher Priest, novelist, he wrote the novel The Prestige, which ends up being very close to what you see presented on the screen here. Interesting thing, Priest was approached by Sam Mendes. Sam Mendes, of course, he directed some of the recent
American Beauty.
Well, yes, but he had later gone on to do like Skyfall and some of the other Bond movies. But this is him coming right off of American Beauty. This is like him looking for the next film.
Revolutionary Road.
Well, yes.
I'm sorry, I'm just naming the obscure ones. Go ahead.
Well, my point is, this is him like fresh off of American Beauty, looking for the next thing. So he was trying to do the Prestige, trying to adapt the novel. But Christopher Priest, lately he had viewed Nolan's work. He saw Nolan's work on Mementos. I believe this is like he saw his work on The Following. This is before Memento. Before Memento was either finished or released. It was kind of around that time. So he watched the VHS tape of Following. He was very blown away by it. So he sought out Christopher Nolan to work on the movie. So kind of post Memento, during the release of the whole thing, Nolan is kind of approached through the movies, given the book to read, see how he feels about it. He reads the book. Yeah, Nolan does some of his stamps that he kind of adopted, especially kind of post Batman Begins. Basically, Nolan's a guy who walks and strolls around to think and kind of plot things. Like, well, he and his brother will walk around, they'll chat over some ideas. One of my favorite parts of the making of Batman Begins was kind of a casual kind of chat with his brother and him thinking about things, and it's kind of how the movie gets it going. So he read the book. He kind of like, oh, how do we do this into a movie? So he and his brother kind of write it on and off for a while. So let's see. So they're walking through London, through Highgate, which I believe we kind of see a little bit in the movie here and there, at least replicated in the movie. They start writing it post Insomnia, the other movie Nolan did after Memento. I believe that's the Al Pacino movie with Robin Williams as well. So let's see. The goal is to do kind of a 3 acts and kind of a structure of 3 acts with the principles of magic, which obviously is kind of very pivotal to the movie, which we'll get to. Big draw for Nolan, as I mentioned, was kind of the parallel to the magic of filmmaking. It was planned to be done before Batman Begins. Of course, kind of Batman took precedence, kind of came out of the woodworks. Hey, Nolan, why don't you redefine the comic book genre? Okay. Gets us that. So he got a little sidetrack with Batman Begins while he's taking his time for The Dark Knight. Kind of fit a movie in there in between. Had a lot of breathing room in between. So this took, honestly, it took him 3 days until production started to get the script just right for this movie, to get things just right. And again, Nolan really loves to cut it close and getting the script right. You got to love him for. Like they shot it from around January to April of 2006. And as I mentioned before, Nolan's first adaptation. So again, Nolan yet again, He's broadening into the next, like, what have I not done yet? And he gets to, okay, I'm going to adapt a book. All right.
So, I mean, when you say adaptation, of course, like Batman is an adaptation, but not of a full story. It's an amalgamation of stories.
You're right about that. Sorry, I should have clarified. Yes, as in like his first adapted work in that it's not an adapted character. It's like literally an adaptation of a novel. It's like a one and done novel. It's literally an adaptation of a novel. You're right. I should have. Anyway, okay, so of course, as Tiki said, we are going to spoil the crap out of this during this count. I mean, you cannot talk about this movie in depth without spoiling it. So I'm going to be spoiling things from the get go. I don't want to.
What do the hats at the beginning of the movie mean, Dragon?
Well, Joshua Thomas needs to put his hat somewhere. Anyway,
oh God.
It's really just Joshua Thomas's backyard. Anyway, in all seriousness, folks, there will be spoilers. Tiki, hit him with the lethal weapon of film. Let's get this puppy started.
All right, folks. So if you're watching with us, then go ahead and get your thing queued to timestamp 00. Or if you're watching this on Cinemax via Amazon Prime, get your timestamp queued to timestamp 08, because I did that for the free trial of it all, and now I'm kind of complicating things. So we'll see how it goes. But regardless, on most copies, timestamp 00 should work just fine. Black screen right before the Touchstone logo. Folks, we're going to do our level best to make this an engaging conversation that you don't have to watch the commentary for. But if you watch the movie along with us, it'll definitely help bring some things to light. But Dragon, I feel like with this movie in particular, there's going to be we're going to be jumping all over the place with this conversation. I don't know, like this is going to be like a conversation where we're just going to kind of like hit the gas running right out the gate here. So, folks, it should be a lively one regardless. So, all right, Dragon, you ready to go? Ready to cue it up?
Are you watching closely?
I think I am.
All right.
All right, The Prestige in 1, 2, 3, go! I wonder why this isn't on Disney Plus.
Well, you know what's funny? There's a debatable Disney reference in this movie. I'm going to call it out to you. Some people think it might be a rumor, but I think it's true. I think it's an actual reference to Disney. We'll get there when we get there.
Okay.
Little fun fact here, a little reunion for Nolan with his buddies at Newmarket, the guys that did the Memento, and I believe the following as well. There's Newmarket.
Yeah, Newmarket were really big back in the early 2000s for indie films. Like indie film in general, of course, in the mid 90s to early 2000s, that was kind of the big boom of the indie film. Yeah. And we cut to Joshua Thomas's backyard.
Okay, so
Dragon, now that you mention this, I will never get that image out of my head. I will always think of this as Joshua Thomas's backyard. Thank you for that mental image.
Anyway, so we open the movie with a literal tip of the hat and a kind of a clue to both of our stories here. With we see the hats and we have "Are you watching closely?" And of course, it's going to be an excellent payoff for both of these things. Again, I like that we have something that's indicative of both magicians for the movie. So this is the best narrative choice of the piece here, structuring each act to the three parts of the trick here, and just kind of walking us through here what the wonderful Michael Caine just kind of laying out.
This is my favorite Michael Caine performance.
Yeah, I gotta tell you,
I haven't seen everything he's done, but out of everything I've seen him in, this is probably hands down my favorite role of his.
He is really good in this.
So, Dragon, do you want to talk about just like beyond the structure of the magic tricks? Because of course the structure of the magic trick is sort of the deception and sleight of hand of it all. But I feel like through the deception and sleight of hand, we get basically what we're seeing here, folks, is a really important act towards the end of the movie. And then literally in the Michael Caine parts, again, spoiler alert, the very end of the film, the very end of the story. So, what do you think of that, Dragon? Just the whole, I mean, I feel like this is it's interesting. It's really interesting because I feel like in terms of what Nolan's trying to do with the three acts, it's one of his most clear because he literally lays it out for you right at the very beginning of the movie. But by the same token, I feel like the way that Nolan plays with time in this movie might be among his most non-linear and non-clear. Like it's certainly not as spelled out as something like Memento or Dunkirk, which has a clear structure to how time is presented. This is just jumping all over the place from the get-go.
Well, again, here what we're doing here is this is just this is every clue, everything is under your nose for what's going to happen in the movie. Basically, again, it's what you say. He's literally telegraphing it. Like, this is what happens, and Michael Caine's literally spelling out for what he's doing with this movie, yet you're still going to be stupefied when you get to the end. So I think it's quite ingenious. And again, very much in line with if you're going to do a magician movie, you want to exactly what you're going for.
Yeah, so like I said, the movie literally opens, like one of the first shots is the hats, and Joshua Thomas jokes aside, we have, Hugh Jackman. What is his character known for? Hats. That's kind of his visual motif in the movie. Mm-hmm. So that should really cue us in right away. Like, oh, gee, there's a lot of hats, a lot of Hugh Jackmans, literally.
It was really great with the editing of that sequence too, where basically we're walking through, the pledge, the turn, and the prestige. Basically, we defined the prestige right away in case anyone's wondering, why is it called the prestige outside of like a fancy title? What does it mean? So of course, we have the big trick, which is the pledge. The turn of Angier's death is we killed off Hugh Jackman like a few minutes into the movie,
right?
And the setup of Act 3 being the prestiges, and it's basically the filmmaker making the promise of, okay, it's all going to pay off, folks. That's going to be our prestige. It's all going to come back, so pay attention, as Christian Bale said at the very start of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a little fun fact. I got to tell you, I think we would have a runner throughout all these. Nolan loves quality sitcoms because Daniel Davis, who plays the judge here, he's Niles the butler from The Nanny.
Oh God, really? Oh my
Again,
God.
Nolan has excellent sitcom taste, and again, we've had some Frasier act. We had a Frasier actor in Memento. That was just great. It's kind of a fun runner.
What about in the Batman universe? What sitcom actors have popped up there?
Boy, that's God. Now I'm at a loss at the moment. I'm sure I'm trying to stay focused here, man.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot. This
That's what
is
I'm
a
saying,
very
like,
dense movie. My bad.
that's what I'm saying. I don't want to lose anything right here.
All right.
All right. Ask me during the credits. Maybe I'll think of something. All right. Anyway. So of course, now speaking of which, another sitcom actor here, we have Roger Reese Owens here, basically the guy, the estate guy. He's from Cheers. He was Kirstie Alley's like hopeful boyfriend, who was just the rich guy that basically didn't give her any time of day, and it was just that guy. He was. Here's a little potential Disney reference here. You'll notice what Borden's prison number is.
Oh,
Don't you?
yeah, it's not a Disney reference. No.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I'm just saying some people speculate. I got to tell you, because it's in reference to Touchstone. That's what people are even kind of like saying. But it'd be hilarious if that were the case. But
I don't know about the Touchstone of it all. How is it a reference to Touchstone?
I just meant the whole Disney connect of it all. But
okay, no, but I can definitely tell you it's not a reference to D23 because this movie came out way before D23 was a thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think you're
having
right.
said that, it is very amusing that he's wearing D23 in the movie, like throughout the whole movie. That number's just there.
Well, I said rumor, folks, because it's probably not true if you're being honest. But wouldn't it be a wonderful world if it was?
Well, if this movie came out in like 2010, 2011, then it'd probably be very possible. But I think that was honestly the first D23. It was like around the early 2010s.
So we meet Borden here. I gotta tell you, I think it's one of Christian Bale's great performances here. I love this character that he plays.
I mean, the interesting thing about Borden is that he's a character that Christian Bale absolutely has to keep at arm's length from the audience because of the deception of the role. So there's a distance there with him. And it's not like, I feel like one of Christian Bale's more relatable, like humanistic roles is something like The Fighter, where it's like you're really rooting for him and on his side. But this is just a very multifaceted role where it's not a very likable guy, but you get these different kind of like takes on him throughout the movie. And it really kind of leads to eventually within the reveal, how Borden, again, sorry folks, spoiler alert, Borden being two different people, essentially playing the same character, Dragon. And that's what fascinates me is that, essentially with the twins, the fact that they're switching off, it's like both of them are pretty much leading the same life. It's kind of a head trip when you really break it down. How Borden as a character really is these two people combined into one force.
Yeah, we have a great kind of crane shot here of the train. Looks really nice. Nolan going for the practical, even though it's probably not an easy one. So let's see. Also, it's kind of great too. Is in that
I want to see stuntmen dangle off that train, Nolan.
So it's great as we established that Borden, we had a lot of great things set up with kind of our Act One, pledge of it all. There, we've set up the rival. We've kind of set up the mystery of the rivalry, the trick, of course, and the backstory device, which of course is the diary. So our Act One is pretty well set up very early in the movie, and of course we also a little bit of a class thing. I think the class is kind of an underlying thing that's really important between Borden and Angiers here, where of course, like in this case, Lord Coldlow and Borden, of course, mentioned a man of your background, the idea of kind of like a by the bootstraps magician versus kind of one who's come from money, essentially. It was basically kind of a hobbyist who kind of delve deep into the world of magic, let's say.
Right.
Of course, something I should mention to the framing device in itself. So the framing device was different in the book. So in the book, what it was is that there was the great-grandchildren in the present found the diaries of their respective great-grandfathers, and they were reading the books and learning about them. So that was the original framing device. And I imagine like the gallows thing, where basically he's waiting for execution. A lot of that probably would have been either different or maybe excised entirely. I haven't personally read the book, but I've read descriptions of the book, and from what I hear, that's what happened. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay, the interesting thing about that is that I feel like I'm still trying to piece this movie together, Dragon, and I've watched multiple explained videos of it, and I'm still like, I feel like it's one of those like Rubik's Cube movies where there really is no one interpretation of it. And I mean, because of that, the interesting thing is that I feel like I'm pretty sure the two narrations of Agir and Bale are the journals of both of them, but I'm not entirely sure. Dragon, is that correct? The two different narrations that you hear are their two journals.
Well, yeah, there are two journals. That's the awesome trippy thing of the book here,
Okay.
of the story here, where the idea is that so Borden is reading Angier's diary and earlier, as we see, Angier has his diary. So basically, in reading Angier's thoughts on his diary, it's kind of like he's getting an introspective look on himself through Angier's. That's the idea.
Okay, wait. So you're saying that in each sequence where we're hearing the voiceover, it's the opposite character reading the other one's diary?
Yes, it's the opposite character. But again, it's overall what's supposed to be is it's Borden reading Angier's thoughts on Borden, as in like Angier got Borden's book, and Angier then wrote his own diary, and that's the diary that our guy's reading now after having read Borden's thing.
All right, let's just give it up for the great Andy Serkis here, really quick.
Woo!
I mean, my God, I'm honestly surprised that I didn't recognize him in 2006, Dragon. I really didn't. But that just goes to show that he really does kind of blend right in. He is a great sort of like physical character actor that way.
What's really neat about Andy Serkis in this role, one, it's kind of neat to see him play American, which is kind of unique. Also, Mr. Alley, the character that he plays, the assistant character. This guy's essentially he's kind of an inverse of Cutter. He's kind of a shadier. You don't know how much you can trust. Alley seems like a nice guy to me, but you don't know how much you can trust this guy. You really don't. He kind of plays maybe a smidge like a shady version of the Michael Caine character. Essentially, is kind of what he's doing. So again, this is what I'm talking about. Like right now, we begin the diary, which of course leads to the other diary. I think it's a risky endeavor to try getting it. It can get a little heady, but I think it pulls it off really nicely, especially on the rewatch.
Again, I'm still not entirely wrapping my head around it, but like you said, like it does. Like I think this is probably like my third or fourth time watching this movie. Like this commentary is probably my fourth time watching this movie, so. It is a movie that definitely benefits on rewatch, but it definitely is a movie that, on that notion, kind of like warrants being studied because there is so much complexity to it.
Of course, the magician on stage right now. See, the idea these guys are plants in the audience right now. They're the plants, right. They're the stooges, if you will. They're anyway. So Milton here, the actual magician on stage, he actually trained them for the movie. That's Ricky Jay. He's actually a magician in real life by the name of Ricky Jay. Unfortunately, he's passed away since, but he plays Milton here, and he coached Jackman and Bale on how to do the magic tricks in the movie to make them look convincing.
Nice.
Like sleight of hand's a specialty, from what I hear. That's kind of his main. Mm-hmm. Some magicians have a specialty. Of course, I love this. I love how we set up the status quo, which is absolutely what you want to do in the pledge of it all here. He sets up status quo. This is how the trick should be done. And of course, we have Angier's role, Borden's role, with tying the knot around the hands, which is going to be pivotal for her escape. And of course, my favorite bit, we have Michael Caine with the axe on the side there. We have Cutter with the axe.
Right.
So of course, we have them as essentially they're two aspiring young magicians
really
here.
Well establishing. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Point being, like, they're two young aspiring magicians at this point with two very different approaches, as they're kind of ranting about right now here. The fact, one's the showman who comes from money. The other one's kind of the poor man's working magician, but he's super clever. He's as we established in the movie, he's the better magician. But he's a little ambitious, and of course, his ambition is kind of what lands everybody in hot water here. He's the one suggesting like the bullet catch trick, and he's the one who's like sticking by his risky knot. We also established the two character flaws of our men here. Borden's riskiness as well as Angier's craving the spotlight, that like the limelight. Of course, that's going to be both of their undoings here. Him being risky, which of course is going to. I love all the fate stuff. We do tremendous fate stuff in this movie. How these men are doomed to follow their paths, and you can see like it's kind of a tragedy within a revenge story. I love it.
So this is one of the only Michael Caine performances I can think of where, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like I don't necessarily look at Cutter as like the bad guy in this movie,
Oh no, he's
but
not a bad guy.
really he is the person who's kind of like orchestrating a lot of it.
No, he's more
Like, well, I only say that because he's not necessarily orchestrating it, but he is kind of like in the middle. You know, he's like he is more morally ambiguous than what we're used to seeing from Michael Caine.
that is, he's kind of the mentor and the father figure to these guys. That's kind of the idea, and more
Yeah,
to
right.
Angiers.
But what I'm saying is that he kind of like takes different sides of the argument in different points in the movie, and I feel like he's kind of like depending on like what benefits him in the long run. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into it too deeply, but I did kind of I'm not saying he's a bad guy, like I said, but I do think that he's more morally complex than you know, the usual Michael Caine sort of like grandfatherly role.
I see your. I think I see your point here. I think it's a little bit more like he's the teacher who basically, he's training his pupils here, and then I think he leans more towards Angiers, and I think he goes through an arc though. I think he goes through an arc as one pupil loses his way, he kind of sees his way back to the other one, because again, he sees the risk in Borden. Borden can steal tricks because the idea is like Borden, he's smart, he's clever as a whip, and he also sees the danger. And that by the same time, that's the thing. I think he sees there's a menace in one, but of course he doesn't see the menace in Angiers at all as it kind of developed. And that kind of, I think that's why it's a little bit more kind of back and forth with him in that regard. I don't know. That's my read on it. So this guy. Sure. Shinling Su, this is based on a real guy. There was a real magician back in the day. A little bit more. I believe they got an actual Asian actor for the movie here, but in real life, he was kind of a man, basically putting on the Asian facade because it was about the exoticness of magic back in the day. He had an exotic gimmick. And what's really cool about this guy is that Jin Su, again, real magician who died from the bullet catch. He died from the bullet catch on stage. I don't know if that's where they got the idea from. If Christopher Priest maybe got the idea from that. I believe the bullet catch is in the book. I would assume so. Point being, the main takeaway of the scene here is that you have a guy who's dedicating his whole life to kind of the illusion, as in he's pretending to hobble like this so he can pull off the perfect trick, which of course these two guys they bear witness to. And as we will later learn in the movie, Borden absolutely gets it because he's doing it already. And
so Borden, like throughout the whole movie, Borden is in the twin mode, right?
Yeah,
like there's not a point in the movie where he's not, like he's actively engaged in it throughout the whole narrative.
I mean, look, the only potential I would argue from the second that we see the other, he's always had a brother, so I would assume he's always been doing it. But I'm just saying we don't see Fallon until he takes the stage for himself. So there's a chance it may not have happened at this point, but I don't know. I'd assume so. It's a little, again, it's not explicitly stated, but I'd assume he's been doing it since.
Because I gotta say, like on a rewatch, that is the twin stuff is definitely, I feel like, the most outwardly rewarding stuff on a rewatch. Just kind of like following, like, oh, which twin is which,
and it all tracks. It all does.
It all very much tracks.
I mean, again, I'm not 100% when it starts, but it all tracks though.
All right.
So again, we foreshadowed, the start of the obsession and the self-sacrifice angle. That whole idea is basically, again, even if just them both being green before they've gone down the paths they're going to go down, in the sense of maybe he hasn't done the twin, maybe he hasn't switched things back and forth yet. Even if he doesn't, it's the fact that it's like the idea is put into play, and these two guys are definitely going to fall down to that path. We parallel the two men's personal lives here, where we see Angiers and his wife. Of course, I love the whole Great Danton thing. I love that's a really nice, loving scene between the two of them. And of course, we see the reverse here, where we have this the meeting of Alfred and Sarah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sarah is a very tragic role, so I'm only going to say it once. Dragon, Alfred and Sarah. Sorry, I had to get one in there.
Also, Nolan's second.
Especially because of the Goldblum of it all. Goldblum's kind of having a moment right now. Anyway.
Also, one thing. Again, genius foreshadow. One of the most genius foreshadow. If you're watching this the first time, with
the brother thing. What happened to his brother? Yeah.
Where is his brother? This is great. That's what I'm saying. I love the.
It's very obvious once you've seen the movie once.
But I love it though. That's genius.
Yeah, totally.
What I'm saying is, I love all the foreshadowing. I think all the foreshadowing in this movie is just absolutely brilliant. A little fun fact. Again, I would assume that I think this might be in the book, but the idea is Two brothers. So you have Al. So of course the name is Alfred Borden, right? The name is Alfred Borden. But
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
technically, I would assume at birth, one is named Albert and the other one is named Frederick. So put them together, they are Alfred.
Oh, okay,
So that's the
okay.
logic there. So together
That's
they are.
interesting. Like I said, there's Alfred Borden, the
Mm-hmm.
character doesn't technically exist,
And
and
also, if
that's
you,
so fascinating.
I think he doesn't, because even with Fallon, you still get kind of
He's
an.
literally an illusion throughout the whole movie. Christian Bale's performance is
Mm-hmm.
basically an illusion.
Yep. No one really got his
Right.
money's worth out of his actors. They both played double roles in this movie.
So, what do you think well, do you want to talk about? I mean, we already kind of brought up, the whole like Christian Bale and the sacrifice. But what do you interpret with the symbolism of the dead bird? Because it's a big symbol of the movie.
What I'm saying, the dead bird is, well, okay, dead bird's kind of two things. Again, first and foremost, it's it's the fact that again it's going to sacrifice his brother. In other ways, it's kind of the casualties of magic, and that both of these men are going to lose someone close to them. Of course, later it's going to be his brother. In the case of Angiers, it's going to be his wife again through the pursuit of magic. And I guess broadly, it's just kind of the whole. As we get by the very end of the movie, there is consequence and sacrifice, and there's a lot of dark stuff that goes and just kind of like this seemingly just kind of like, oh look, see, we went from point A to point B, isn't that quaint? And they're all clapping, all having
Right, right.
grand old times. The fact that there's some darkness there, there is death. That basically death, whether you equate like if you kill a bird in an act for a magician, especially back then. Now, of course, you probably have PETA and stuff, but even though some magicians probably still they probably get away with it, they don't tell you. Point being, you're going to have some dark means in your magic. You're going to have to call some quality of life insignificant. In this case, birds for the grander whole of the act, or doves for the grander whole of the act. In this case, it's going to eventually build to Angiers, where he'll kill other versions of himself. But again, they were clones, therefore, but he's killing himself, though he's killing another human being. So I think that's kind of the point of the birds. It's kind of like, we deem human life of some variety. We deem a life of some variety inconsequential in the grander pursuit of the art.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I definitely think it's directly a parable to the clones for sure.
Well, it is. Well, especially the brother too, because it's like, what happened to his brother? Okay, so this is I can tell you, I just love Dan. It's always pleasant when Daniel Davis shows up now and again. It's like, it's good to see him here. Completely forgot until the rewatch that he was in this movie. It's been a while since I've watched The Prestige. It's been like a year or so.
The movie has a very eclectic, awesome cast.
It does indeed. And of course, we're building up the trick here. And of course, as Michael Caine's performance here is without a sense. Of course, at this point, remember he knows it. Well, wait a minute, no, he doesn't know. He just knows the menace around the scene. There's a lot of secrecy around this thing, and of course, basically probably parroting a little bit what he's heard from Angiers, that this thing's like actually magic. Essentially, it's that Tesla's worked on this, but that's probably as much as he's gotten out of him at this point. Because he hasn't figured out what Angiers actually is at this point. Well, at very least, he doesn't know all the ins and outs yet. Of course, I love this. I love that we kind of frame the tragedy of what started this whole grand rivalry right here. The fact that this water tank has a history to it. I think.
Yeah, this is a great kind of like call to arms for the rivalry for sure.
Oh yes. I forget if Houdini was the one who really popularized like a whole you're upside down in the tank and you're trying to make your way out of there. I forget if he was the original, but yeah, of course, the water tank. So it's always a great visual too with like escape artistry.
Yeah, I know Houdini was kind of like a pioneer in just escape artistry in general. I'm not exactly sure the specifics of his act.
Yeah. So, of course, this is a big moment. Here's a big Rorschach test for people here. Of course, there are a couple of moments here. But now, of course, on the rewatch, until the very rewatch getting ready for this commentary, I got to tell you, it didn't occur to me that. So, of course, right now he ties it on. He looks up at her. I love how much we communicate with a little eye, with little glances between people here. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie here. And I love how he when he looks at her here, and again earlier she was on board with like, yeah, tie at the risk, go with the risky, now I can do it. And of course they're saying, no, don't do that. And of course she looked at him and gave him like a little bit of an okay sign. It depends on how you read that. Like, did he which knot did he tie? Did he tie the risky knot or the safe knot? Mm-hmm. Was it like an unfortunate accident, or did she kind of like fall prey to kind of some pride here? Like, that's the thing. Like, and of course later on, here's what I'm saying on the rewatch, never occurred to me, is that the reason he doesn't know is that a different Borden was on stage.
Oh yeah, right. That totally makes sense.
Well, actually, now I think about it, forget what I said earlier. He has to have a clone at this point. He has to have the twin at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so he fully has the twin. Yeah, he's had it from the beginning. I'm sure of it now. He's had it from the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, of course I just love like Kane Raiders. He's with the pocket watch. And he's like, okay, now I gotta go out on stage. He's swinging that axe, man. Awesome. No, but seriously, this is kind of a great tragic moment. In the book, this was different though. So in the book, what happened was she didn't die. Something debatably worse happened. So there was a little bit more of a spiritual angle. Sometimes in the early days of magic, you had like seances kind of counted. So basically, it was like a seance and do like a little bit of like a little bit of spiritual sort of like, hey, let's kind of chat with the ghost. Let's do a seance. Uh-huh. And essentially, Borden was trying to sabotage Angier's, and while he was doing it during maybe a scuffle or something broke out. The point being, by accident, the assistant, the wife here, she fell off the stage, but she was pregnant, which caused a miscarriage.
Oh, geez.
And that's what fueled the rivalry. So she didn't die, but it was just like that's where the initial hatred came from. Sure. But again, I got to tell you, this is simpler, and again, with all the death we're gonna have later in the movie, I think it tracks well. I think it was a smart addendum.
It tracks well. It's a little bit more cinematic, and it gives the water tank a lot more symbolism and weight to it.
And of course, again, we're linking things very well with, okay, so, he's eventually going to meet the same fate inside the water tank. It's all very simple. Right. It's very full circle. And also, I love that. The thing that really struck me in a rewatch, too, is like when he's sticking his head in the water, I think that's out of sequence. You know what I think happens? I think Michael, after the funeral scene where Cutter tells him, I once knew a sailor who said, when I'm drowning, I'm home. I think he's putting his head in the water to remember.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think he's doing. I think that was out of sequence. That's what at least a little headcanon there.
But what do you think of that lie with Michael Caine in general? Because of course it's a big thing that comes back.
It was a lie to comfort him. That's what I think of it. I think he was just trying to comfort his friend there, comfort his student.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this right here is what I'm talking about. On the rewatch, it's like, yeah, he legitimately doesn't know, because he says later on, he says, a part of myself thinks I did, a part of myself thinks it was the other nod, as when he's reading in the diary later on.
And it's interesting because with him, it's the language clearly becomes, as the movie goes on, it clearly just becomes more and more obvious that there's two people, and as we start to see him interact with oh God, I'm sorry, what's his name? The twin,
Fallon.
Yeah. As we see him like interact with Fallon more and more on screen, it starts to become more obvious to us.
Speaking of which, here's Fallon.
The get-go. Yeah, right. Is this the first appearance of Fallon?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is the first appearance of Fallon. He's showing up right now.
And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that device, the whole idea of this character that's sort of like, he's essentially the big part of the trick that we're not really supposed to be looking at.
Exactly. It's also early, Christian Bale really dedicating to the makeup and everything, where, again, he's really made up there. It kind of added some heft to him. He's wearing a fat suit underneath. It looks really good.
Right. Kind of a precursor to the Vice days of Bale.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting with Fallon, because essentially he's playing this character that does just kind of blend into the background. He's he's kind of like just a C tier character to the plot, who's just sort of there, and we're not really meant to zero in on him at all. It's just a brilliant kind of like hiding in plain sight sort of gimmick.
Remember, Fallon doesn't speak. Fallon only has one line in the entire movie, and the idea is what we have with the other duplicate. There's a kind of an unspoken rule with a double, as Michael Caine says later in the movie, that the second the double speaks, the trick is exposed. That's why Fallon, until one moment where he just emotionally cannot restrain himself from saying a last word to his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Until he does not speak to the entire movie. I mean, I'm sure he's speaking off camera. He's like setting things up. Obviously, he's not on mute, but in the company of other people, especially people that the other person would know, doesn't speak.
Dare I say it's maybe a little bit of a Penn and Teller thing going on there?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Of course, the bullet catch trick. This is so clever, and this is like Nolan doing his thing. I would say Batman Begins, in many ways, it starts Nolan down certain paths in his filmmaking, kind of begins some new traits for Nolan. I think are really exemplary and really kind of permeate his reputation here. Where Batman Begins is a film all about like showing how basically it's the explanation to the whole "I'm Bat because I'm Batman" explanation. It's basically the explanation. It's like, how can he do all this stuff? Like, how can he be so awesome? Like, how does he? How does he get the grappling? How does he get the grappling? How does he get the whole suit figured out? Like, how does he do these things? And of course, this movie is all about, like, a year after that movie, essentially is all about, like, how does a magician accomplish the trick? And of course, we see moments like, okay, how do you do the bullet catch? So we're explaining certain tricks, in the bird cage later on. Like, it's great.
So, and you know what? That's a really good point. This film does kind of have a good parallel to Batman Begins in that way, in that we are answering a lot of like, how do we do this type questions, and much like Batman Begins, this film jumps around in time a lot.
Of course, Rebecca Hall here's the shout her out, playing Sarah.
Yeah, Rebecca Hall, probably one of the best things about the new Shining movie, Dr. Sleep. She plays the villain, and she's good.
She's in that. Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. She plays the villain.
Oh, cool. Is she the one with the top hat?
Yes.
Knew it. Okay, I knew when you said that, I was like, she's got to be the girl in the top hat.
Uh-huh.
Of course, we start the I Love You Today runner, which I got to tell you, here's the thing. It makes perfect sense with the reveal, but until that, it's a little off. First watch the I Love You runner, it's a little iffy. It's a little iffy until you get that full on kind of reveal at the end, where it makes perfect sense. That's why something's off, because again, sometimes she's
it's almost meant to be something that only makes sense on a rewatch.
Sure. All right. So, by the way, a little fun fact: Professor, which basically, Borden here, he goes by the Professor when he's on stage. When this is his first performance, his first gig. Mm-hmm. Which is why this is all the worse what happens to him here. So the point, the Professor was a common name amongst magicians for the time. They go by the Professor. So of course, it was really ingenious the way this act's laid out here. He's very much performing in pubs and stuff right now. And the idea is he's giving like a lame trick, so people demand the trick that they heard rumors that he was going to perform, and that's why he's built up expectations. Like everyone wants to see the big trick now, so he's warming them up with the lame ring trick.
Yeah.
So of course, my favorite directing runner is right here. My favorite thing in the whole movie is when we do these reveal shots. We look up and reveal shots with the eyes. Oh, I love this. It's like you're completely helpless. You're in front of a crowd and you recognize, oh God, it's my rival. It's the Daffy Duck to my Bugs Bunny. Oh God, something's gonna happen here. It's seriously, isn't it like a chilling reveal shot when you see the stone cold eyes of like, I'm gonna get you, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you're too late. It's like, oh, it's. Of course, my proclivities and my fears here. Of course, what happens to Borden here really does terrify me.
Oh yeah.
But also, it's not just my fear here, but it's also the fact this to me is like the cruelest thing in the movie. This is like the cruelest thing one of the cruelest things in the movie. It's the cruelest thing you can do to a magician. Take away his hands. Mm-hmm. The idea is he's not going to be able to. He does pretty well for himself with the ball stuff later on, but the idea is like he can't do close up, like sleight of hand magic anymore. After that point, like he can't work with both hands after that point, which is just so sad, just losing the fingers. So this is right now what he's reading here in the diary. So now he's seeing that he's saying that part of me thought I tied the one knot, the other part of me thought I tied the other knot. It's like, how does he not know?
Yeah.
And of course he's absolutely true. So again, Steve, what just happened now? So again, he's in the flashback. He read Borden's book, and now Borden is reading Angier's thoughts on him having read that book. So that's the idea.
Okay, so Dragon, why is it still bleeding after 3 days? This is really clever.
It is. I know this I completely forgot about until the rewatch. Like, oh God, for that. Perfect sense. But again, it's kind of
could you imagine just cutting off your fingers just for the sake of this act?
Oh God, no, never.
I know.
Never. But again, Tale of Obsession, which, by the way, a movie like this is like, if you ever need a reaffirmation as to why Nolan was perfect for Batman, because Batman's a character all about dealing with obsessive personalities. It's just movie form, it really is. Now, this trick's a little cute. It's a cute runner between the two of them on the rewatch here. Where it's like they only do it to each other here. You put like a little playing card at the bottom of the glasses, and you probably bought them the drink. Therefore, it's like, hey, it's me. Adorable. So a little fun fact. So Priya Wally Pfister, cinematography here. There is all the lighting in this movie is natural lighting, as in if you have the lights that are on stage when they're performing, those are like literally the stage. Like if you're lighting that scene, like there are no additional lights put in just for like cinema. Like, they're not really jerry rigging any sets. Like all the lighting in this scene right now, that's like light coming from the outside.
Right.
There's no extra lighting in any scene in the entire movie. It's all natural lighting.
Yeah, I can see that. It kind of gives the film sort of an air of realism to it.
Like right here, especially in the open spaces, looks really good. Adds like some natural shadows, some silhouette. Looks really cool. Also, I should probably mention too. So of course, when they go to all the theaters in this movie, all of this is shot in.
I love when they do the theaters because I've been to a couple of them and it's really fun. I've been to the Pantages.
That's the thing. It's really cool. A lot of pretty much all the theaters they used in the movie are from the old theater district in L.A. It's the old Broadway theater district.
Right. So I've definitely been to the Pantages. I don't think I've been to any of the others, but I've definitely heard of all of them.
Oh, look, an Avenger. No, seriously. Scarlett Johansson. I think she's really good in this movie.
I don't think she has a ton to do in this movie, but she's really good. I think she's probably the most underserved in the cast, but still, she's kind of playing a B-tier role, but she is very good with what she has to do.
Yeah. So this is I heard this in the making of this movie. I heard there's a little class thing built into the wardrobe. If you notice, the higher status you are, you need help to put on your clothing. As in, like the things that fasten from the back, as in you need like a servant or someone to put on to help you button up and fasten up. So that's kind of how you can tell. Like it's why you need. It's like a little status thing. Like a lot of the clothing that fastens from the back belongs to a rich person. It belongs to a person of affluence. It just kind of buttons from the front, like you and me and any other average Joe. It could be a little bit more on the Borden side of things.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Mr. Merritt here. Mr. Merritt. So this guy, I think it's W. Morgan Shepherd. He's the actor's name playing Merritt here. Now Merritt, I recognized, kind of looked into it. He did a guest spot, like a one-episode guest spot on Mad Men. He played, for any folks who have seen it, he played Lane Price's father, his sadistic yet kind of lovely English father. And it was like, oh god, it was a really great scene. They were basically learning like this character. You basically remember Moriarty from the Robert Downey Sherlock Holmes movie. Remember that guy? Jared, Jared Harris, I believe his name was. Like he was this great character, had this really scary father, and that was this guy. But again, so it's like just kind of a nice guy here. Yeah, he's a real animal lover too. He's like, oh, I don't want to hurt this poor bird.
All right, so what do you think of the? I think the contraption is probably one of the more ingenious costume designs in the movie.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like they're giving. This is Nolan adding the logic and showing how the thing's done here. Where we're seeing. Again, why do magicians wear so many layers on stage, especially in the old, in the Victorian days, as we were in here? Is like, well, again, you want to cover up some of these extra contraptions if you're doing them, maybe card up your sleeve tricks or something, as in you have like a little mechanical thing up your sleeve. Also, they really tried to avoid all the old period trappings too. They tried to make it not on the nose, like, hey, there's horses everywhere in this movie, horse-drawn carriages, and
that's smart. That's smart because I feel like a lot of period films to me kind of blend together and sort of start to feel the same and start to feel boring. And honestly, the ones that do stand out to me are the ones that don't feel like that. So yeah, you're right. They do kind of give it a timeless quality of you don't necessarily see, of course, modern technology in this movie, but it does still feel like a time and place inhabited by, people that it doesn't feel removed from our society, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 'cause you got to remember, Victorian era at this time, the big thing was, you had electricity was a new thing. You had the Industrial Revolution, photography, like things were, like all the advertising in this movie, as you'll notice, like there are like posters everywhere, and as in that, you're limited, but you're also like you're able to kind of naturally explore the location, just kind of the way things were done then. So again, it's like not like, hey, it's not spelling out for like many period pieces would do. It's like not all about like, hey, look, we're in the olden times. Just like, yeah, we happen to be in the olden times for this story. It's like it's like kind of a casual yet it's casual yet authentic. Of course, also with all the mechanical, kind of like almost steampunky and kind of stuff we have going on with like the get up under the jacket here. Again, it's slowly getting us to the Tesla stuff, which of course the big theme of the movie is kind of magic meeting science. Again, it's kind of taking the old nod from the Thor movies. Where does science meet magic? We kind of Nolanized it in a way here. Okay, so yet again, coming up here is one of my favorite runners with the whole the chilling reveal. It's even better here. I just love the continuing arc of the revenge here in this movie. It's a great revenge rivalry.
Yeah.
Of course, in this movie here, we have this poor lady who's about to get her fingers broken, and and then Borden here, just again the reveal with the little stubs. Just looks up with him, that chilling glare, and just look at the fear in Angier's eyes right now. Now, it's really cool, as you'll notice, like you saw like the blood, and Nolan's not really a bloody filmmaker. He likes to avoid the blood when he can. And you'll notice like you saw like a little bit of blood spurt up on his suit there, and the color scheme, they saved red for the performances. And there's very little to no like legit red in the movie until you get to like the big performances, like the curtains, the red carpet, all that.
Right. That makes sense.
Gonna make it pop, and especially if something goes wrong like that, and with the blood red of like that poor bird splattering on him, it also conveys.
Yeah, honestly, like I gotta say, you and I might be simpatico on this, and like in light of all the horrific stuff that happens in the movie, I feel like the fingers thing might be the most horrific, just because of how realistic the injury is.
Yeah. It's the fact that it's like they're nubs, man, and we see them.
Yeah. God.
Just a painful reminder of like it's not all there.
No, it's not.
So yeah, then you get the idea. He's transcribing what he's read in the novel. When he's read in the diary.
Mm-hmm.
Decipher. He's trying to decipher so he can figure out the tricks, which is why he's read that. Well, you get it. Oh, I love this. I love how we're building up Tesla. I love that we're building up Tesla here with the thunder and the lightning. And of course, they moved to Colorado for the lightning of it all. So it's just everything's encapsulated visually. Why is Tesla in Colorado? What is happening right now? Like, why we're building up Tesla as kind of this mythical figure almost. This.
Yeah, Tesla. Like I love the distinction that Michael King gives to Tesla, and that essentially magicians do fake magic. Tesla is a wizard, and wizards do real magic. I love that.
Absolutely. And again, around this time, Tegan, of course, you know this better than I. Around this time, you have the famous Tesla-Edison rivalry.
I didn't see the movie, Dragon.
Well, I'm just saying the
hit movie that everyone's talking about, the current wars.
That's what I'm saying. The fact that we're stupefied they actually made that movie. That's the fact that the whole Tesla Edison rivalry. That was actually in the book. Tesla and Edison were in the book a little bit more, and the idea is that was going to parallel the Angier's Borden rivalry. Which again,
that makes sense. Yeah.
They cut most of that out, but I like that. Again, you can definitely feel where it kind of gives Tesla kind of like a reason. If you know your history, it's like, oh man, Tesla is there perfectly. He makes perfect sense why Tesla of all people is there. Given like he's also been embellished in a rivalry, he kind of comes in on the Angier side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we kind of established the idea here is Tesla's in the scientific community. He's basically throwing out some really some really next level stuff that people aren't ready for. And again, we're not exactly in the days of kind of the Salem witch trials of it all, but there's still a period of gestation where we're still trying to like get people to accept like things that are, even if they're scary looking. Again, like the Tesla coils, the AC, the whole alternating current thing. It is awfully scary. It is, but again, more style over substance if you're really looking at it. Well, not style over substance. There's great stuff. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more razzle dazzle. And what he's lacking is showmanship. Otherwise, you create fear. And that's kind of the message that Tesla's really bringing here, is that you can present like true magic, which at the time would be this technology, but without the showmanship that Angiers is all about, which, by the way, is why Hugh Jackman was picked for the role, because as we know years later with The Greatest Showman, the man does bring showmanship. Never has it been spelled out more, but this movie did it first and did it probably better.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this one I'm talking about the natural lighting here with all these, the light bulbs and everything, which I think I just missed, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Field of light bulbs. It's a cool look.
And let's talk about this movie in terms of like historical fiction, Dragon, because I feel like that's where it really shines. And you just mentioned something, with the Tesla and Edison rivalry, of course, that makes it. I feel like even though they cut out most of the Edison stuff, we still kind of have like a shadow of Edison.
Yeah, we have two references to it here, where like this is just bad press by the Edison group, and then of course later on Edison burns down. Edison's men burn down the place.
Right, so I feel like there's just enough there to give Edison like a presence in the movie. And so by the same token, like everything about this movie does kind of like, it is a fascinating piece of historical fiction because it breaks down sort of like, a lot of stuff like the magicians of the era, the Victorian setting. It breaks down of course, the inventions and the rivalries and the actual practical magic tricks involved. And it's a really interesting kind of amalgamation of fact and fiction.
I like the little detail that Borden is here and he's also observing this. And again, this is what cements, like, this is why he comes up with the name Tesla later on, because he attends this thing. But also, he does incorporate a little bit of this into his act later, which, again, you gotta remember, there's a lot of sequence, typical Nolan, in a good way. Well, it's kind of his thing. Oh, wait, Streets of London.
It would honestly be weird to watch a Nolan movie where it's just completely sequential.
Yep. So, by the way, this the Streets of London, Universal backlot.
Makes sense.
Anything you see in the movie, it's either Universal backlot for the Streets of London or it's redressed LA locations. It's basically made to look all Victorian stuff. By the way, little fun fact: it's a Nolan baby.
Oh God!
So this baby Jess here, this is one of Christopher Nolan's kids.
Okay, nice. So it's really interesting, of course, with the hierarchy, the class system, where it's a classic thing where the working man might be struggling more in life, but he might have more stronger relationships forged out of maybe the fact that he's struggling, and finding common ground with other people who are struggling. Whereas Agier, of course, being the upper crust, he has the benefit of the the more comfortable lifestyle, the resources, but of course he doesn't have that sort of social know-how about him. He knows how to perform, but he doesn't know how to be a person. And so it's a really interesting contrast in that way.
Yeah, basically, Angiers loses a lot of his humanity through the piece, and
right.
It's more. And honestly, they both kind of do. They both, in a sense, do. However, the good thing is that Borden does. He finds a way to he refines his humanity. That's the difference. He lost it, but right now what we just had is he read his enemy's thoughts on how he had the life that you wanted, and yet he had the life you wanted, and basically, as he kind of knows through later in the movie, he just, he challenged his wife constantly. Basically, he ruined his own happiness, which his own enemy is like spelling out, like, yeah, you had the life that I won, the life that I lost, my wife died, and you just, and because you were fickle and contradictory, which of course he's fickle and contradictory because he's two people, but mind you, which that's the thing. but still, it's the fact that, again, because of this lifestyle he dedicated himself to, he's complicated. Everything is kind of thrown away his happiness. So, I like that's kind of giving him a bit of a wake up call to what he's truly put people through up to the execution. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this scene. It's a great little scene right here, man. I love this. This scene where basically he's kind of toying with the guard here, where the guard's just being a wise guy, just being one of those prison guards, just like antagonizing the famous prisoners, and basically he's kind of playing the stumbling magician here. Oh, I'm trying to make the ball disappear and I can't do it. But again, just great here. Like, he shows that he really could. It wouldn't be. He'd probably be shot down if he legitimately escaped. That's the ideal. He would. He would.
Right, right,
He'd be
right.
easily. He could escape the chains anytime he wanted. But let's be honest. It's like he wouldn't go very far. He can only get so far. Again, there's an actual escape plan in a sense laid out here, and we do set up that again he will escape prison, but again not in the conventional sense.
Mhm.
I love the little detail. I love the early electric fence and the fact that again to the science nerds out there is the fact that Mr. Alley here is wearing the rubber gloves, which is why he doesn't get electrocuted when he touches the fence.
Yeah, good touch for sure.
So here we're going to meet the great David Bowie here, folks.
Oh, man.
Let's hear it for him, the great Bowie.
I mean, when I said this casting is eclectic and awesome, I meant it, Dragon. I mean, this might be the most eclectically awesome cast in Nolan's career.
Now, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but did you know
David coming Bowie, out of that lightning, what an entrance.
And the handshake. Basically pulls Uncle Fester here with the handshake. But I love this, like, hold out other hand. I love how just very, very succinct he is with the dialogue. Just like, as a man who... Anyway, so it's really, I don't know if you know this or not, David Bowie didn't want to do the movie initially. He turned it down.
No, I have no idea about that.
So what happened, from what I heard, what happened was, by Nolan's own words, actually, so he wanted David Bowie for the role, so he flew all the way down to David Bowie, and he basically he made his case, he pled his case to David Bowie that you were the only person I can envision in this role. I need you to do this role. And basically, Bowie was essentially kind of moved by, oh man, he really means it. He really wanted me for this role. So essentially, Bowie was swayed by Nolan by an in-person plea.
So kind of like the Walt Disney Save You, Mr. Banks angle.
In a sense, yes, in a sense. Honestly, Nolan was very fascinated with the Tesla stuff. He felt he could have done a whole movie on Tesla, but he felt he got everything he really wanted to say about it.
Okay, honestly, if Nolan had directed the current Wars, then I feel like that movie would actually have potential, but he didn't. So
that's what I'm saying. He said essentially he got all the Tesla stuff he really wanted to get in the movie, so it's pretty much it all worked out. He kept the mystical, it kept kind of like wizard-like and mystical, so I think it all comes across very well.
Yeah, it totally fits into like the magical realism element that this movie's going for.
Here's the fascinating thing about Tesla, his inclusion in the original book that also is basically what it is here. So the idea, Tiki, is that Tesla in real life, so Tesla, he makes the initial breakthrough, the alternating current, basically the original stuff that Tesla coil, all that sort of stuff. Tesla makes his first revolutionary breakthrough. And he has other ideas. Unfortunately, those other ideas at the time were rejected, as they kind of are when we kind of check in with our story here. They're rejected at the time, and in real life, he went forward with these devices in secret, like he is in this movie. But he patented these devices in secret, and that's where kind of our author got the idea. Like, what if one of those devices kind of like came into play with our story here? What if that was kind of our miracle exemption for the movie? Like, what if that was kind of our Mr. Wizard device of the film? Because again, Tesla did have like a whole bunch of secret inventions.
J.J. Abrams would call it a magic box.
Sure. Well, it is kind of a magic box, technically.
It is.
You see what I mean? That's kind of neat, isn't it? So again, it's like Nolan bridging history with kind of like kind of our fiction.
No, yeah, definitely, and that's what I'm saying about the appeal of the historical fiction here. And this is the only, I believe, historical fiction movie that Nolan's done, because of course Nolan's done Dunkirk, but I don't really think there's much fictional about that movie.
No. And apparently the weather is the only fictional part of that movie.
Right. Other than that, it kind of went out of its way to be as accurate as it possibly could have been.
Yes. And bear in mind, they had to shoot good weather while they were down there. Okay, they couldn't just like it would have been CG if they really wanted to make it and go with the elbow. Anyway, we're not talking about Dunkirk here. We're talking about Prestige. So, of course, with the Prestige here, it's also really neat is that Tesla's warning to him. Again, Tesla being also an obsessed man, warning him of the path that he took. And again, it's kind of the cautionary, you're going to be a slave to obsession if you go down this path. Then I'm not going to be deterred easily. So I love that basically before he got a taste of success, in my opinion, in this scene right now, I kind of mentioned the whole, like, he lost a few fingers, my wife's dead. So at that moment, when he's being talked to by Olivia there, I feel at that moment in the movie, at this point, he's still driven by the personal revenge. And I think through the course of the movie, then he's going to completely cast, like, I don't care about my wife. He's going to literally say that in the movie. And again, I think that's tied to a little bit of his, like, kind of silver spoon living, as in, like, he wants.
I mean, dare I say, there's a little bit of a Breaking Bad theme to it, where it's like, you know, ultimately, like at first it's a personal thing, but then it kind of like balloons into this sort of like pride thing a little bit.
You know what's really cool? We don't even see the original transported man trick here. Remember, he's bouncing the ball, he walks in, but we don't see him walk out the other side. We see the reaction to him walking out the other side.
Well, it's sort of like one of those philosophies in filmmaking where it's like sometimes you can imply something, and the implication of something is even more effective than actually showing that thing to begin with.
I love the madness, though, because it is kind of a simple trick in that you see you very much edit that very simply in that, okay, he comes out the other side. But I love that, again, we're set, you're kind of in Angier's head for like how maddening it is that it's so simple, you don't even need to see it.
Exactly.
So, by the way, so in real life, the transported man, so basically this is the sort of thing what happened with magicians in the olden days with the tricks that we know, we've seen tons and tons of times here, but like originally the levitation trick was kind of the transported man of its day.
Mm-hmm.
As in, like, levitating somebody. That was the trick magicians were accusing each other of stealing and creating rivalries and everything with. So, again, like, that's kind of what Transport Man's somewhat based on. But again, it's a little bit more of like you kind of take an established trick. And I don't think Transport Man's actually necessarily been done. I mean, like, maybe like not as directly as it is here. I mean, again, sure, like probably people doing the actual thing with a double, but you know what I mean, like something as like convincingly and simple as this thing is.
Right, yeah. Well, again, it kind of lays into that historical fiction thing of like much like how the Tesla thing, you know, sort of fits very comfortably into the history of it all. I feel like the teleporting man thing, it might not be a real trick from back in the day, but it uses the same rules of what they would do back in the day, and it fits again into that kind of like bubble of historical fiction that really does go out of its way to kind of like add to the authenticity of this movie.
Yeah. I don't want to toot my own horn here, so I'll keep it brief, not really for the self-aggrandizement, but I just figure because anytime I'm going to bring this up again, it's going to be during this.
All right.
I actually was technically a transported man. I was disappeared by a magician once.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, I told you this before it was ages.
That's a story. Okay.
Yes, Lance Burton. I even have a T-shirt that says it. I disappeared Lance Burton in a white Corvette.
Oh wow!
In Vegas.
Oh my God! In Vegas.
Man. Honestly, it was kind of, I think,
Vegas stays in Vegas, Dragon.
No, honestly, it was probably a year or two before this movie came out. If I'm actually.
Oh wow! Oh my God! You must have been a young lad.
Yeah.
All right.
Of course, now we meet the other double of the film. We meet Jerry Root. Steve.
Yes.
Stephen Root's long lost brother. No, in all seriousness, we Jerry Root.
Really, Diane? Really?
God. So I just love the idea. Of course, you know the old adage: everybody somewhere has a doppelganger. Right? That's kind of the logic here. But again, this to me, it's okay.
Dragon, I've got a doppelganger situation on my hands right now. I don't mean to derail the conversation, but I keep seeing Monkey's father, Rob's father. Like, I keep seeing a doppelganger of him every day when I go to work. He's like jogging past me on my way to work when I'm walking to work. And then without fail, he'll jog past my alley where I work about 10 minutes after I get there. It is alarmingly consistent. Anyways, go ahead.
Of course, right now, again, we have just kind of the Hugh Jackman, kind of Scarlett Johansson relationship going on here. And I think what's really great on the rewatch is that you see it's really after the performance you really kind of get the zenith of it, but it's kind of developing here. The idea that he was presented with an opportunity to move on and maybe be happy. I'm not saying, we don't know 100% of how things would have gone, but I like to think that, he was presented with the opportunity to have like moved on from his wife and everything, but he couldn't let go of the trick. Couldn't let go of the fact that, he couldn't outdo the trick or figure out how the other trick was done. Therefore, like when he had this woman, he had like this potential way to go. He then turned her into a spy, like at the moment where she was really in love with him, as we kind of saw that. And as she's going to rant later on, that he was I actually love that man, and he turned me away because he was in love with the trick more.
Right, right.
It's kind of crazy, and again, fits into the whole theme of obsession. So here with Jerry, with the other great Danton. I love when Hugh Jackman does all the great Danton. So this is really well shot here. We're doing, I presume, a little bit of split screen here. I don't think it's face replacement. Face replacement is something would do a little bit more later, and kind of like at the very least around 2009, I think.
Sounds about right.
Whenever
yeah.
season 3 of Breaking Bad was, I know at that point we definitely had face replacement. The point being, I imagine doubles are very pivotal in this movie because, of course, there's a lot of two men in a scene. Of course, when you do that, you're going to have a double from behind. The way you do those kind of twin shots. And however, they are looking at it, doing really good stuff. They're just walking up to them and we kind of spin the camera around. We see both of them in frame. That's got to be like kind of a really well placed split screen, I'd imagine. And Nolan going for the practical before it's like CGing a guy's face on top of another face. I imagine it'd have to be a split screen. Very simple to do. But again, really better frame. Like keeping the camera moving while you're doing that, that's not easy.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course, there's the hat again. The hat being the operative symbol again. Like Danton's again. The great Danton's version of the professor's trick is again tossing the hat. So again, the hat is his rubber ball, and again they both have their symbols from the movie: the rubber ball and the hat.
I feel like those are again kind of like good symbols for the the working class and the upper class.
Yes, and the working class man who worked with his hands and be able to do all those tricks again with the damaged hand with the bouncing ball makes sense. We have our elitist guy with the hat. Yeah, it all tracks wonderfully. And I love how we've upgraded the trick too. By the way, I love the hat. You have like the door frames instead of like the box.
The door frames just work really well visually. It's very, very cool.
That's what I'm saying. I love that we've legitimately, like as Cutter called out earlier, the man has no showmanship, and that's where we can get him. Where again, again, being the word, he's all about doing the trick before he's about the presentation, which he gets better at over time. But right now, it's like this is the advantage that our guy has. Like make the trick even more seamless. And but again, I love this. He has everything he wants right now.
This is probably my favorite shot in the movie. That bow.
Yeah.
There's so much like rich character stuff that you can take out of just that one moment.
The fact that
that is kind of like the Breaking Bad moment.
And then that's the fact of it, T. The fact that he can't just be happy with the fact that he's outdone him. He has the trick. It's it's great. He just has to take his bow underneath the stage. But again, he knows
the movie could literally end right now if he like swallowed his pride.
And again, he has a relationship with Olivia here, and again, it's literally he's presented. He lost the great love, and now he's like the potential of a new one, as well as all the success he ever wanted. He's outdone his rival. He's got everything he could ever want right now. But again, his ego, maybe stemming from the class thing, he wants the limelight, but he's everything but being able to take the bow on stage.
Totally.
And also driven by the fact that all of this because he doesn't know how the other guy specifically did the trick. He doesn't know. He hasn't figured out. Where again, our other guy, he knows he's the smarter of the two. He knows exactly how you pull off the trick.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Right. Yeah, really good stuff.
Oh yeah. A little costuming thing I'll mention as well. The space here, it's kind of neat that she doesn't have like all the like the kind of again a period dress of some kind. She doesn't like the big poofy dress or anything. They didn't give her any like any. They kept her streamlined for like how we would actually move if you were a magician's assistant. That's why she's kind of like bare minimum in terms of the costuming.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just the corset, so maybe some frilly thing underneath. And again, this poor girl, poor Olivia here, just like she's...
I mean, both of the women in this movie just get put through the ringer in terms of just being kind of like jerked around.
True. Yes. So right now we're... this is a great reveal too when we eventually get to the big reveal here. But right now we're establishing, okay, we have the device built. We have, the transporting device, but seems like nothing's happening.
Yeah, seems kind of like a moot point.
Yeah, basically we're expecting a teleporter, where in reality it's a copy machine.
It's a duplicator.
The world's biggest copy machine.
It's the world's first 3D printer.
Sure. Well, it is. Yeah. I gotta tell you, I love the fashion. I love the old fashion in this movie too. I love how Jackman's dressed. Also, I love the mini mystery too, because we're about to solve that mystery. So I should have mentioned this earlier. I love the cane. I love the fact that he has a cane in the later scenes in the later junctures of this movie. And of course, in the past, he does not. And we like how we kind of see how that happens. And again, it's kind of like what we do with Memento. Memento, we solved like the little mini mysteries, like how do you get the marks on his face, which of course we kind of solve by the end.
Sure.
Those little touches.
Dunkirk also does a little bit of that as well,
yes.
with the injuries and everything through the timelines.
Again, we're kind of seeing how Nolan develops.
Nolan staple.
Seeing how Nolan develops over time, he's gotten better at it. It's like little touches here to the So let me kind of voice this a little bit. It's going to come into play a little bit later, but I might as well mention like a little bit of it now. I gotta tell you, I feel as much as I love Nolan, I think as much as we all love Nolan, I've always viewed Nolan has one kryptonite. There's a little bit of kryptonite that gets Nolan for a lot of these movies. And I think here it's on the fence. It's not bad. But I feel in all the Nolan movies, his weakness is doing a love story.
Yeah, it's not as I would say maybe Inception is probably his best love story.
But again, even so, and again, we'll evaluate when we rewatch it, of course. But
I'm not saying it's I'm not saying it's a healthy love story. I'm saying it's the most compelling love story.
Because even this isn't bad. But again, even this isn't bad. But what I'm saying is, I think he does chemistry better than he does the love stories. And like these people, like again, Batman, Catwoman, them meeting each other, great chemistry. And again, I'm satisfied.
Sure.
Bear in mind, from what they do, it's like again, Batman and Catwoman are constantly flirtatious. That's kind of how that dynamic goes. In this case, I buy they like each other. I buy enough of that. But I'm saying like beyond something that's kind of built in with like copious source material on that one. Something's built in, like how that relationship goes, and he met that. Outside of something like that, I feel like a legit like him doing a love story from start to finish kind of gets to maybe a fatal flaw of Nolan where this movie is as human as he's possibly gotten with any movie, but again, through the negative, like a revenge movie, how you're motivated by these very...
Well, I mean, that's the thing, Dragon. That's the thing. It's like, I feel like most of Nolan's movies, there's honestly like not really a lot of time for a traditional love story. I mean, look at something like Memento, where it's like, when Carrie-Anne Moss is first introduced in Memento, we're thinking like, okay, this woman could maybe be some sort of like salvation for Leonard, maybe set him on the right path.
Yeah.
Maybe not even romantically, but just kind of like help him out. And then, of course, as that movie plays out, we realize like, no, she is perhaps the most evil character in the whole story.
Absolutely. And that's that. You're absolutely right. You're right. It is a timing issue. That absolutely is the reason. It's like, of
course, with Dunkirk, there's not going to be any women in that scenario.
But that's the thing. It's either like time or just like there's focus. It's like you can't blame him for it, but something you kind of know is that when we get to something Interstellar, it's a problem where basically I think Nolan's thing is that he analyzes love before he's telling a love story. It's like we talk about love and Interstellar, like it's the secret variable in the equation. Where again we're talking about love, and here we kind of do that a little bit too. It's a lot more palatable where we see you see love for family with the kid, and that's great. That's there. But I'm saying like romantic love and the relationship is that okay? Well, they like each other, and the whole like
when Nolan does that on a traditional level, it does kind of feel a little forced.
And again, only because he doesn't have time. Of
course, the worst example of that is Rachel Dawes.
But you see what I mean? It's only because he doesn't have like real time to dedicate. It's not that I don't think he can do it. It's just like he doesn't have time to really do it.
Well, it's because it's just simply like. Nolan is almost kind of like the antithesis of Mark Webb in that way, where it's like Mark Webb is all about the interpersonal relationships and stuff like that. And I'm sure there's better directors I could cite that are, doing interpersonal relationships. Like Noah Baumbach is another good example. But
so I love this.
But Nolan is all about big ideas and visuals.
Yeah, so he's more about the strategy than he is about kind of the interpersonal love, as it were.
Right.
So I also want to mention, I love how clever Borden is. As a character, I've always loved that about him. And I love right here where, again, now we've seen that he poisoned Angier's act with the ultimate sabotage. And very justly so, because you got to remember, Angier is stealing his trick, so he's kind of justifying in messing with his act here. And also because when he figured it out fair and square, because he knew about that when she came to him, like claiming she wanted to work for him and everything. Whereas he figured out the actor. Here I knew he was using a double. And Angier literally provided him with his undoing with Olivia, sent her over there, and she needed to gain his trust, and this is how she did it.
Right.
He knew he had a double, and she probably gave him the name of the double or something. The point being, like, he hangs out at a bar, he's a drunk. Any like little thing that she said, he probably figured it out, and that's how he basically poisoned the act here. And that's how he basically, he got the guy sauced up, and of course he basically, hog-tied him. But of course, my favorite bit here, this is genius here, where it's so. Again, he kind of gets back at him for the fingers when he breaks his leg there, and that's why he has to use the cane for the duration. We took away the pad,
yes,
which really hurts. This looks so painful. And I love this, and I got to tell you, this to me is such an awesome thing he does here, where it's so awesome the way he basically kind of takes about while advertising his own show, as he basically makes Angier look a little foolish here by.
Yeah, I love that too. It's like such an element of like showmanship and one-upmanship.
Absolutely.
Right, and again, the Pantages, the theater I have been in to see Hamilton, actually.
So apparently, is there a theater across from the Pantages, or is that just maybe like an artistic?
Ooh, across from the Pantages, I believe that the El Capitan is maybe not directly across from the Pantages, but it's very close by.
Well, maybe across the street has a few definitions.
Also the Grumman's Chinese is like right down the street on the same side of the street as the Pantages. It's like maybe a couple buildings away.
So now, as we see, Angiers is motivated purely by ego, not revenge for his wife here, as basically he's kind of he's really letting Olivia have it here, where again, he sent her there and to gain trust, and he told her, just tell the truth that I'm here, she sent me here to spy on you, and of course, ipso facto, you kind of knew what was going to happen there. I mean, sure, there's a little bit of wiggle room there in the sense of like, well, you didn't know he was going to sabotage the act entirely, but it's like she gets him the journal and everything, and right now it's kind of like her last plea of like what's happened to, because obviously she's fallen for the enemy here. She's fallen for she's fallen for Borden here. Where technically she's fallen for Fallon, but let's not get into that right now. But you know what I mean.
Right.
Fact of the matter is, this is where he literally, as he's thumbing through the book coming up here, he literally says, I don't care about my wife. I need to know the secret. Where again, he's just completely, even with a broken leg and everything, it's just the fire the kerosene has been poured on the fire, but it's for the wrong reasons here. And Angier's completely lost his way. I think that's the major difference. Angier has lost his way in that he's completely obsessed, where the other guy, where Borden, he's lost his way unintentionally, where again, he's divorced himself from people with this his devotion to the original.
He's almost kind of like been in, like, it's almost like his act into itself with the brother is almost his undoing without even knowing it, because that is what makes him lose his humanity.
Exactly. And he's lost his, let me put it this way, he's lost his whole personage in that he's divided himself. Therefore, he can never be a full person. Where Angier's here is kind of lost, he's kind of like sanded that away from himself over time. Where the point where he is literally, he is kind of, or he also gets to the point where he's half himself as well. Where he's literally killed off a half part of himself. He has.
Yes. Very great, kind of like literal and metaphorical, sort of like, the brothers and then the clones are kind of like the metaphorical symbol that he's killing off.
Absolutely.
All right.
Let's see. I'm going to pay attention because I forget if we see the trick in full here. When Borden is doing his act as professor, like we see the trick, and I forget if we see the trick in full, or maybe I just forgot that part. Well, not coming up directly now. It's like after the whole break-in thing where he's kind of piecing together. Okay, yeah, he stole the diary, and he's going to basically later in the movie. I think one of the brilliant payoff with the diary stuff is the fact that in both diaries there's kind of a middle finger screw you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where he wanted him to get the diary, so he told her to give him the diary essentially.
Right.
Like right here, let's see if we see the full trick. We're going to see the full trick. Isn't that it? Forget what I'm saying. Yeah, we do see the trick. It's a cut, but we see the trick. It's also.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for a lot of tricks in this movie, there's usually like part of the end.
Yeah, but I thought we were gonna see a reaction shot like we did the first time it was betrayed. I forgot that we did. So the point is, we saw both guys come out of the thing. I guess not in the same shot, mind you. But
Okay.
still. So let's put it's in the middle somewhere. Anyway, so this is where Angier's completely loses his mind, in my opinion. This is where Angier's really is like. This is where the obsession is getting really unhealthy here. Where what Angier's is about to do here and getting kidnapping another person. Now, to be fair, Borden kind of kidnapped the drunk. He kind of kidnapped Jerry. But let's face it, Jerry was sauced out of his mind. He just tied him up, and he didn't bury him alive. That's the difference. He didn't bury him alive. Okay, he put him there for all to see, and Jerry was going to turn on him anyway. Jerry was going to he's blackmailing. He's blackmailing Angier anyway. I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah. Angier was being blackmailed by the drunk anyway, so it all worked out. So, I mean, it was going to happen anyway. He kind of made the process,
If anything, he maybe did Angier a favor.
Kind of, yeah, but yeah, he didn't out
unintentionally.
Importantly, here's the thing: it would have been a violation if he showed that it was a double. He didn't say it was a double on stage because he just tied him up there. He implied that any smart people would probably be able to figure out that it's a double, but you don't see two Angiers on the same stage, one tied up and one back on the stage. You don't see that, so he didn't out him completely. So again, Borden's still playing by the rules. I think that's the important delineation to make. It's right here. I mean, I guess as much as I love Michael Caine, this is the most villainous thing he kind of does in the movie, though.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. There is, Michael Caine is definitely an accomplice to some shady shit that goes down in this movie. You can't deny that.
I will go as far as to say this again. He does test him, and I think it's an important thing to state here is that Cutter says, are you willing to get your hands dirty? And again, just now, he was getting his hands dirty, and he was an accomplice. And he's a self-admitted accomplice here, where he says, yeah, I was your accomplice in this. But again, remember, he didn't kill that pigeon. He didn't kill the dove. Okay, he did not kill the bird, showing that, again, he's willing to kind of get your hands dirty, but you don't always have to. And I think that's the message where he's sickened by how dirty Angier's hands got later on. He's as far as he's willing to go. So long as the man's not going to be killed, he'll kidnap the man because he kind of kidnapped our guy. There's a bit of justice in there. There's a bit. Let's get our hands dirty within reason.
Right.
I love how this scene looks. By it's a really good rain scene. Sometimes you have really good looking rain scenes. This is one of them.
This I don't know, but this kind of looks like it's Northern California.
It possibly is.
Just by the look of the redwoods and everything.
So, by the way, of course, he writes down Tesla on the piece of paper here, and of course, you'll notice when the last time we saw the act, he had the Tesla coils and everything on top of the box. Basically, he spruced up his act a little bit after seeing Tesla. And again, now I do question: is he using the Tesla trimmings just to spice up the act, or is it to cement the false lead? As in, when he writes down this Tesla thing, he knows he's going to exactly know. Oh, it's the same Tesla I'm thinking of. It's not just a mystery word. It's the same Tesla.
I don't know. That's a good question. I never really thought about that.
Borden's awfully clever.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, I think you're right that by this point in the movie, Angier is definitely sort of lost it. He's kind of gone down the rabbit hole of revenge, whereas I feel like Borden is sort of if anything, he's sort of using the rivalry for promotional purposes. He's not taking it as personally yet.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, Angier already, he made him basically. Remember, Borden's debut was ruined by Angier, and he did the same. Therefore, as far as he's concerned, they're even because he also he has the last laugh. The reason he can let it go is that he has the better trick and that one that he had not figured out. Therefore, he doesn't need to mess with him anymore. Mm-hmm. And he was just playing with it publicity-wise after that. I have a theory about this scene. I have a headcanon thing about this scene.
Okay.
I think this is Fallon. And remember, let's just say for argument's sake, Fallon, whoever was buried alive just now, I think this is the one who's playing Borden right now. I think that's the one who's buried alive, which was Fallon. And let's just call this Fallon.
Okay.
So I think this is Fallon. I think he has a little bit of PTSD going on from being buried alive, which is why he's kind of drinking. And basically, I would go as far as to say, because he's drinking because even if he were to be Fallon in the scene, he would be a risk of maybe he would say something, and of course that would give away the whole thing. Therefore, he lets him be Fallon. So if he gets chatty, it's because he's drunk.
Right. Interesting. I like that.
Point being, I think he's the one speaking about being buried alive, and but then again, it could just be a brother who almost lost his other brother. Therefore, he went through something traumatic. Either way, it works. But I like to think maybe it's Fallon.
I mean, I do like that throughout the movie, there's certain times where it's obvious which one is which, like when Rebecca Hall sort of calls out the "you love me today" thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely a lot of times in the movie, like this one, for example, where it is a little bit ambiguous, and throughout the movie we're kind of like constantly guessing ourselves on that.
And remember, again, I don't know how much logic this makes, but Olivia and Fallon are the items. Remember, Olivia likes Fallon, and Borden, the one with the point, is the one who actually had the daughter and actually married Sarah here, the real Borden.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm getting at is Olivia called this Borden Freddie, called him Freddie, and that implies that maybe that is Fallon. Therefore, it's like like he called me Freddie, and like I do like her, yeah. That's why we're having a bit of a legit affair thing, because he is in love with Olivia, but he's trying to play it down to the wife here.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I got to tell you, I don't know, I'm just not trying to generalize here, but I got to tell you, Christian Bale's character, and I would argue, and I can't say it's from Genesis, because obviously Nolan didn't create the story on this. He adapted it into this, with his brother, into the screenplay, and so on and so forth, and directed the movie. But I think there is a lot of Nolan in this movie, and of course what he's saying about filmmaking and the magic, and how you're playing to an audience, all that sort of stuff. But I really think the Borden character, I would argue, the Borden character is a lot like Nolan. Or at least what I would speculate, maybe Nolan could see himself as.
Well, maybe Nolan and like Christopher and Jonathan Nolan, maybe.
Sure. That's what I'm saying.
Like kind of like that team element to it.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying, I think like maybe it's kind of an interesting, maybe kind of potential Rorschach test of like, I could absolutely be reading way too much into it here. But I'm just saying certain moments, especially later on, like especially when we have Borden getting into it with his wife, and again we kind of have that Nolan disconnect with the love story of it all, and it makes me wonder if Nolan maybe deep down fears that he could Nolan deep down fears that at the price of success and obsession, as like you want to make these very specific movies, you want to make these, you want to do things very. All this dedication to your craft might cost you, some personal relationships. I wonder if maybe that's not intentional. Maybe like deep down, some of that, kind of imprinted itself on the movie.
Kind of like just on a subconscious level.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it's a little bit. There's a subconscious thing. Nolan kind of put a lot of himself into the Borden character, and by proxy, maybe he and his brother put themselves into the magician's role. Both of them, perhaps. I don't know.
Sure. The way that the 3-act structure breaks down. It's not the exact same kind of meta-commentary as Inception is, but Inception has a similar meta-commentary with the whole, the fact that the team is made up of different people in a film crew, which, of course, is something I'm sure we'll break down in that commentary.
Mm-hmm. I'll also remind you, as we kind of established earlier on, the neat thing about Christopher Nolan and his brother is that, Christopher Nolan, he was raised very English, and Jonathan Nolan, he was raised very American, raised in Chicago. And like our two characters in the movie, you have the Englishman, who's the professor, and with Borden, and Angier. The idea, at least the way I read, because the whole Lord Caldwell thing, I believe he is English, but again, he puts on the American accent so he can be a little exotic for the folks on stage. That's the idea.
Sure.
Point being the American brother and the kind of the more British brother. It's kind of what I'm getting at there, perhaps.
Interesting parallel there, yeah.
Just got toss a little red rubber ball out there, see where it lands out. So right here's where he gives him like the middle finger and yeah, she gave you the book just as I said. And Tesla was, and he basically said you wasted all your money on Tesla just because I led you down the Tesla path. But again, what he didn't see coming is that he's actually going to do it, though. That's what he didn't see coming.
Right.
And this is what I'm saying. Like, amazingly, I think this diary stuff does come off because, again, like one has a screw you, then we even get the other one having a screw you in his diary. Because this is where the one diary story ends entirely.
I mean, I do think that it's maybe a little bit too much going on. Like, I don't think it's as streamlined as something like Memento or Dunkirk.
No, but I think it teeters the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it comes right up to it. I don't think it goes over the line. I think it comes right up to the line. I think it's like
I agree. I mean, I definitely think that this film is not very accessible on first watch. I will say that much. I think this film almost kind of like requires multiple viewings in a way that many Nolan films don't necessarily do. I don't know. I feel like I'm not trying to come down on the movie at all, Dragon, because it is a very ingenious film. But I feel like a lot of the other Nolan movies you want to rewatch just because of the ingenuity of it all. And with this, rewatching it almost kind of feels like a necessity.
Yeah, but a necessity by the fact that it's so good you want to come back again to fully get it. So, you know.
No, I mean, you're not wrong, but I'm just saying, like there are a lot of elements to it that really kind of like you really have to be looking closely for it. Like, especially it's the kind of thing where once you know the trick, you know, the second viewing is kind of like where it's like, all right, Christian Bale, yeah, after I know your secrets, you're damn right, I'm looking closely now, motherfucker. You know, it's like it adds a whole new context to it.
I put it to you this way: first watch, it's an experience. Second watch, you kind of you get it, and the third watch, you marvel at it. That's kind of how it would go.
I could see that. Yeah, for sure.
I love this bit with the cat in the rewatch. The bit with the cat is Andy Serkis. You know, this is his personal cat. He says, like, I hope I'm going to hold you responsible for anything happens to this animal. And of course, that's a big foreshadow for Angier is going to have to be responsible for what happens to himself when he comes out of there. Whereas, in like, you know, essentially you're going to have to kill yourself, or it's yeah, or essentially you're going to you have to have the big ethical decision to make after they have the other one pop up. Or this is just the great reveal where we link up the mystery of the first image of the movie here. Like, okay, hats off. Okay,
lots of hats, man of many hats.
Yep.
Looks like that guy on the dock finally fell into the water, and now the hats are. Yeah, that's a bad joke. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I can see the flaws in that one.
Yeah, gonna abandon that one. Moving on. We're not anywhere close to the water, Tiki. Why would there be a dock in the woods?
A little, so I can get in there somewhere. You know, Christian Bale. He was told by Nolan not to read the book. He said you shouldn't read the book when we do.
So he was given the Walt Disney Jungle Book advice.
Yes, but he didn't heed it. He read it anyway. But again, it worked out pretty well. So you know. But actually, Hugh Jackman was cast first. Christopher Nolan, he was kind of in like the Harrison Ford, like for Indiana Jones casting thing, where he didn't want to like cast. He didn't even think about casting him again, but he saw like Christian Bale came to him for the role. Like, I heard casting for the new movie. I'd like to be in it. And he says, "Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of it. You're awesome for this." Yeah.
Right.
I'm a lot more posh and fancy.
Nolan is definitely a filmmaker where I respect his. You know, he's kind of like he's got a revolving door of talent. You know, he's not like someone like Tarantino or Wes Anderson where it's almost kind of like a boys club of people that he works with. Instead, I feel like there's definitely people that kind of like come in and out of Nolan movies. Of course, Christian Bale, Tom Hardy. I feel like Michael Caine's probably the closest thing that Nolan has to a good luck charm, but not really. And then look at someone like, like a Guy Pearce who gave like a really fantastic one-off performance from Nolan and then never appeared in another Nolan movie. So it's like there's just a great kind of like multifaceted layer to the people that Nolan casts.
Right, and again, just because it's happening, again, this is what I'm talking about the whole meta. I'm sorry, this is the whole thing with the meta contextual thing with Nolan again here, where again Nolan. Kind of an enigmatic guy, kind of something we celebrate. He's an enigmatic filmmaker. Not that he's really keeping any secrets from us, but there's a mystery there. I don't know, we don't know everything about him. We don't know how he works. We don't know how we get a Nolan in the world. But I love that again. He like Borden. He has these secrets there, and again, it's like it's kind of the question of like, you have to keep up. You have to keep outdoing these practical feats, these practical effects, or in this case, the magic tricks. You have this like this entire devotion to your craft, or with.
Okay, hold on one sec. Sorry, Dragon. Hold on 1 second. I'll be right back. Keep talking.
Yes. Anyway, so it's like a question like you're divorcing yourself from humanity of the institutions of love and family. Again, a lot of that might it's kind of interesting. Again, the whole obsession for your work for an audience. Anyway. Also, it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice that we had the zoo scene that kind of happened there. I love the fact that he made a promise to his daughter, which of course, kind of a foreshadow of the promise he makes to her later on to be with her. Of course, the promise of taking her to the zoo, which is Daddy will take you to the zoo, but he's busy right now. And of course, the irony being, he tells Fallon he wants her to take her to the zoo. Now, we, the audience, in the first watch, are thinking, like, oh, okay, he's just going to have Fallon. He's going to bail out and say, have his friend take the daughter to the zoo. But no, he's going to like remove the makeup and everything. So Dad's still going to take her to the zoo, which is it's kind of sweet on the rewatch. Oh, that's kind of nice. Here we go, man. Edison's, man. I gotta tell you, the stuff like this makes me want to check out the current war. Not in theaters, but at some point, because apparently, if Edison's men are gonna burn down an entire lab just for, again, bear in mind, it's fictional and also based on a novel, so I don't know if all of this happened. It might have, though. Again, it's very convincing. But point being, this is the kind of stuff that makes me want to see. Was the rivalry really that heated over the invention of electricity? Was it? Patents and all. Oh, this hotel, man. This hotel is awesome, man. I love that. I don't know. I love like the concierge of the hotel here, like the manager. He's like, he say he knew the Edison's men were hunting for Tesla stuff, and of course he probably told him like he was there specifically for. He told me he was specifically there for Tesla, so he saved the big thing that Tesla delivered to his room. So that's a nice hotel, man. That's a quality.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Hmm.
So I love the design of this box. I love every element to it where it's just when we see it on stage, and then I think I love the design of it even more when it's just literally in the box, kind of like the vaguely pyramid shape of it.
Yeah. Very obelisk-esque.
Very photogenic.
Very much like an obelisk.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit like with this movie. It's like I lost about 2 minutes of it, and I'm a little bit lost at where we are. My bad.
Edison's guys, basically the machine got delivered to him, and I covered the zoo scene already, so that's kind of
weird. Okay. Thanks. Sorry about that. All right.
So the point being now, Angier's about to return. So I would say when Angier returns, going with the whole prestige of it all, when Angier's returns, that's when we enter Act 3, because that's the whole, the man who comes out of the box, the whole returns. Basically, after the device is built, or maybe when the device is completed, that's where we enter Act 3. Because right now we don't see exactly what happens. Because again, the biggest miracle exception of the film is we have cloning. Tesla invented cloning secretly. Again, Tesla did invent things that weren't secret, so we don't know. Maybe he did, but let's be honest. It's the miracle exception.
Okay, let me ask you this, just because, again, I'm still kind of like trying to piece things together. So when Jackman leaves for Colorado, is it just him like going on a business trip, or is there some sort of like deception to him being gone?
No, he was actually gone. He hopped the train and he left.
Okay. Just want to make sure there wasn't any like sort of like fake death scenario or anything going on there.
Not yet. No.
This movie is just kind of like filled with stuff like that, so I'm just kind of trying to keep up with it all.
Right here, Borden. Again, I forgive me, folks, for being repetitive, but he's just so remarkably clever in this movie. I love how he gives him essentially gives him the turn, and he gives him the pledge and the return, but not the prestige, because he wants insurance to see his daughter again. So that's clever. So yes, so that's the thing. So let's see. So we're basically we saw the beginnings of the whole clone thing. So it's gonna be very interesting coming back, and we're gonna see literally the other side of that scene later on. So again, right now here's where we're having kind of mommy and daddy are fighting right now. This is what I'm talking about. This is where I think maybe a little bit of Nolan's fears are coming in there. Maybe things that I'm not saying there's anything unhappy going on in the Nolan house. I don't know. It's none of my business. I'd like to think he has 2 kids. I like to think things are going great. My point, folks, is the fact that I think it's like Nolan's worst case scenario is that what happens to the board might happen to him. And again, in a more cinematic sense, in that, at the cost of your obsession, something you might sacrifice, kind of like, what is it all for? You've achieved.
Well, I feel like beyond just like filmmaking and magic, it's just like it's a metaphor for sort of like all creatively driven people.
Yeah, like you're playing to an audience, but you also have to you can't just focus on entirely what every Tom, Dick, and Harry is gonna want to see. You're gonna have to you can't just play to you can't play entirely to strangers. You also have to do something that makes you and kind of the family unit happy as well. You have to find a balance.
Right, right.
And again, this one time, like here's the thing: on the rewatch, this it makes sense. She feels that something's off, and I hear her. But again, in the scene on the first watch, it's like it just feels like a really weird trait. Isn't like what is this whole like I love you today, I love you tomorrow? It feels almost Skylar White-esque. It does.
Yeah. I was trying to put my finger on it, Dragon, and
What I'm
that is
saying,
good.
it feels like the whole like you're keeping a secret from me. Where
Right.
again, this case he
That's not
is.
very flattering.
But you see what I mean? On the rewatch, though, it's
All right,
fine.
you know what, Dragon? Now that we're talking through it, that is definitely a point. I love this movie, but that's definitely a point. Kind of like again, Dragon. It's sort of like we're tracking it, especially through these last two podcasts that we're doing. We're tracking kind of like what's going to end up as my definitive favorite Nolan movie, and I think that's kind of like a mark against it compared to Dunkirk. Is that one of the things I love about Dunkirk is how Dunkirk absolutely at every turn just totally avoids cheesy pitfalls like that.
True, but again, I will remind you on the rewatch, it does make sense.
I mean, it does. It does. You're not wrong, but still, I feel like it's Nolan growing pains, Dragon. It's Nolan growing pains. It's like Nolan kind of presenting something that's, not the most compelling thing in the world for the sake of giving us something that will ultimately become compelling. Whereas, in down the line, Nolan movies are just going to be compelling all the way through. They don't necessarily like Dunkirk doesn't necessarily require like the sleight of hand element to it to be compelling.
Sure. Two things real quick, because she's now passed away in the movie here. Rebecca Hall, I also want to mention she was really good in the Wonder Woman biopic, the Mr. Professor Morrison. The Wonder Woman.
She was totally.
Also, if they ever do a Bill Finger biopic, I want her to play the granddaughter. I want her to play Athena Finger. Anyway, the other thing though is she died by hanging, and of course I like that rope is kind of the thing that we killed both loves of the magician's lives by rope. So again, I think there's kind of a rope parallel there, and the fact he's also going to hang. So again, oddly enough, think about this. It's kind of trippy. I'm just now realizing this. Angier and his wife died by the same way in that they both drowned. They both when the water chamber, and Borden and his wife both died by hanging. It's quite poetic. Again, rope being the folly in both of these demises, though. Of course, now we have just I love this. So Angiers, and this is really heady on the rewatch too. What Angiers is doing here, Angiers, he's getting 100 performances. Like he's doing his last show, which is going to be 100 performances, as in he's going to essentially be killing himself for 100 performances. But also, here's the thing: he's waiting for his enemy to make his move because he knows he won't be able to resist. He's waiting for him. He's doing that until his enemy shows up and makes his move.
Right. That's exactly why he's doing so many performances.
If he doesn't show up, then he'll just get the last laugh and retire.
Yeah.
But still, it's the fact that he's going to keep doing it until he shows up, and he's always going to be ready to basically when he shows up and he makes his move. I'm just not going to appear as the Prestige. I'm not going to come back. I'm not going to be the man who comes out of the box. I'm just going to basically slip off, and then they'll kill the duplicate, and they'll be framed.
Exactly.
Oh, by the way, another Frasier actor right here, baby.
Oh God. Okay.
Gil Chesterton, the food critic from Frasier, and Edward Hibbert or Hebert. Let's see what Hebert. I don't know. Anyway, he plays Mr. Ackerman. I gotta tell you, he plays it very well because it's the guy who's telling he's telling Mr. he's telling the sorry, I'm blanking on his name. Mr. Merritt from earlier, the other guy, the guy who's freaked out by the birds being killed on stage. That guy, he's the one who kind of goes into his office after seeing the trick, and I love how stupefied he's playing. Right, this is he only has 2 scenes, but these are two really excellent scenes where he's basically mystified. He gets it, this is actual magic I'm seeing before my eyes right now. Make sure you dress it up so you don't freak the people out. He plays this amazingly. He plays such a campy character on Frasier. It's adorable. No, what I'm saying, I love that he just.
It's almost kind of like one of those talent agents or something who's seen it all. It's like they've seen countless people walk through their doors, and then you see like the right person come in, and you're like, oh my god, like you are it.
Yeah. That's just wonderful. And I love how he just kind of marches in later on, tells Mr. Merritt from earlier, 100 shows, I don't care who you have, tell the ballerinas to wait, okay? 100 shows, and you're going to charge this much for tickets?
Screw the ballerinas, man.
Yeah, no one has something against ballerinas.
Ballerinas that Christian Bale is going to date in The Dark Knight.
I thought I'm silly. No one has a thing against like ballet, apparently, because you never like forget their show. Let's put them on a boat.
Oh God!
Someone pass out for the sunscreen.
Okay, is the show that we see at the beginning of Batman Begins, where the Waynes get killed, is that technically a ballet or an opera?
An opera, Tiki.
It's an opera. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, it's an upscale opera though, because there's a lot more acrobatics in it. That's the thing, but it is an opera.
That's the thing. That's what made me think maybe it was a ballet. Was the acrobatics of it all? All right.
Well, the Waynes have money. I'm sure it's a fancy ballet. Well, it's a fancy opera, is what I mean.
It's almost kind of like a Cirque du opera.
I gotta tell you, this is like one other maybe like feather out of the cap. Let's say, let's take a feather, let's pluck a feather here. Where, what's Olivia's saying here? She's saying, he's so cold, it's inhuman. Because remember, he's not as affected because he's probably he's the other guy. He's Fallon in the relationship. Mm-hmm. He's the one that's actually in love with her, so he's not really affected by Sarah's death. But she's saying, "Oh man, you're so cold, so inhuman," and they're saying, "You're telling me you love me," and he means it. You could be telling any other girl, "Where you're the cheatee." Okay, you can't say that. God. You're the other woman in the affair. You're the one who said that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Again, look, as much as we love Nolan,
kind of like maybe a chink in the armor of this movie that Dunkirk does not have.
Yeah, I think the best he's ever struck is the closest. We'll see how Inception holds up on. I don't imagine much, but I think Rise is probably the best he's going to ever do with a relationship up to this point. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Inception, like I said, it's certainly a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Inception, but I feel like it's a very compelling relationship.
It is.
So, yeah, we'll see how that handles. We'll see how that tracks. All right.
Right now, again, the idea is he's not performing the death trick, because right now the idea is Borden's in the crowd. You can tell by the different disguise he's got on right now. But again, this is really trippy though. The idea, he builds up an act, and he has the water tank up there in Act 1. So essentially, this is the trippy thing. He's planned out the perfect revenge. I'm going to remind you what you did to my wife, not because he cares, but just because he wants to get under his skin. He puts the tank out there. As it opens the act, and it gets put below stage for when he basically, every time he kills off the clan, he kills him by drowning. So they go through the trap door, and they fall in the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's essentially, that's what happens. And then that's how he also disposes of the bodies. He has blind stage hands. These blind stage hands, they can't see anything because as far as they're concerned, they're transporting a box, a large tank that they can't see. And again, they're disposing of a body.
I love the detail of the blind stage hands, by the way.
That's what I'm saying, and they're disposing of bodies without knowing it. It's it's like the perfect revenge. Basically, there's so much. Here's the movie Nolan, I think, secretly made with this one as well. He kind of rebooted in the best of ways. He also secretly adapted Count of Monte Cristo with magic.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's so much, Count of Monte Cristo in this in terms of like the ultimate revenge story.
Dragon, not Crisco.
What did I say?
You keep saying Crisco.
Is it Montiato?
No, Monte Cristo.
Monte Cristo. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I only know that because of the Monte Cristo sandwich.
Right. Monte Cristo. Anyway. Okay, let's see. So right now, of course, he's about to... of course, we're going to see the... Again, oddly enough, I'm just going to notice this. Again, we're literally... As we did at the start of the movie, again, we're seeing trick done right, followed by trick done wrong, which, again, for us, as far as we now know it was done completely right. We framed the guy finally, with the point being trick done differently. The term where he did not pop up here. Again, presumably, I'm going to tell you, oh my God, I'm sorry, the movie holds up so well in every rewatch. I don't know, folks.
It does. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean because you notice something new every time.
Sure. And I love that when he teleports there, the original died. the original keeps dying because think about this: he walks on that platform and he disappears. And of course, we know he falls under the thing.
Yeah.
And the new one pops up there, and the idea he can control the proximity now. That was the flaw in the machine. They couldn't control the proximity, basically the way like you generate the electricity.
Sure.
He projected him up there, so he's projected like out of nowhere, right up there in front of our eyes. So that essentially the clone, I mean, I'll admit it's a little out there. Like maybe he just has like the clone from the last show. He's made an extra clone. I don't know. But the point is, the original may have died. It's really trippy, man. It's really trippy and awesome.
Yeah.
So something else I noticed is Borden here. Borden basically fielding talking to himself. You're in the form of Fallon. You're basically him talking to Fallon, just kind of fielding what is. Like how is he doing? How is he doing this new trick? So basically now he's kind of feeling what Angier's feeling, that he's basically baffled. Like, how is he doing this new trick? I can see through every trick, but not this one because he doesn't see cloning. He's like, how the heck is he doing this?
Mm-hmm.
He's my read on this is that Borden, like the real Borden, like let's call him Albert. Like the main brother, the one that actually had the kid, the one who was married to Sarah had the kid. That Borden. When he says I'm done, when he says all right, I'm done, I think he's legitimately. He says let him have his trick. I don't need the secret. When he says this, as he's saying right now, I think he legitimately gives up. Like okay, I'm fine. I'll just move on. And I think Fallon, the twin brother, I think he's the one who comes to the show because we know there's evidence later on that really suggests that Fallon's the one who gets killed off. And that Fallon, who is outside watching things, remember, he's outside watching how the trick is done, reporting back. I think he's the one who can't let it go. I think he's the one who goes to the show after the other one gave up. That's why I think the other one's not, in hot water legally.
Right, a lot of guesswork going on here, but I don't know, man. This movie's got a lot of theories attached to it. That's all I can say. A lot of moving parts to it. I feel like your interpretation's valid. I just don't know how to respond to it. There's a lot of moving parts there.
Of course, right now, here's our link up. The grand link up, folks. It's funny. I think that stagehand, because I'm eventually stagehand's like feeling his face to see who he is, and he's like, "It's me. I'm part of the bloody show." Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention one of the coolest things. So Nathan Crowley, who, by the way, I think I screwed up. I called him Nick Crowley once when we did the other commentaries. I want to correct that. Nathan Crowley. Nathan Crowley is Nolan's set guy. Basically, Nolan's his builder. Nolan, the guy who builds all the sets and the props. That guy, the man who built the Batmobile for Batman Begins. The man who built the tumbler.
Mm-hmm.
The tradition started and begins where he, basically they go to Nolan's garage and they hash out all the stuff. They build all the stuff in Nolan's garage, and he only built one set for this movie. I'm sure all the props. They built one set for the movie because everything is found. Everything's redressed in the movie. The one set that is built is the underground backstage area. It's the only set that he built in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a really, it's a really impressive piece of like just redressing all these sets too. But yeah. That one set is it just kind of goes together with everything really well. Kind of complements, sort of ties all these redress sets together. Sort of like ties the whole aesthetic of the movie together.
I think it's really telling that Borden, even to the end here, he tries to save Angier's. He could have let him suffer.
Yeah.
And again, especially after what happened with someone else in the tank from earlier, where he kind of blames himself for the Parvin blames himself for what happened to his wife earlier on. So he's just trying to break through not let it happen again here. Never has drowning been more Nolan and water, man. It's again Nolan and water.
Right. Also with Inception too.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like Memento's the only one where we really haven't. Unless I'm forgetting something. I don't think. But that's the thing. Memento's the only break in the chain. But
I can't really think of many things in Batman Begins Batman Begins. The water's being polluted. Does that count?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's poison. It's being poisoned. Absolutely.
What about Dark Knight?
Well, we have the boats, so it's kind of watery.
The boats. So All right, fair enough.
Look, I'm saying it's not a perfect comparison, but you're the one who kind of had
Interstellar, though. Interstellar definitely has
Yes.
terrifying
Okay.
water. All right.
The point being, very few exceptions. I mean, even I was thinking, but Rises does have a thing of water. I mean, the whole sewer thing with Rises.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think Memento.
It's a running motif.
Let's just say Memento and The Following, the first two movies. Outside of that, I can't recall Insomnia at all. But it's outside. I can't verify Insomnia. Everything else seems to be water. Very much terrifying water in each.
God.
So, yeah.
All right.
You will be afraid to swim.
I like how it's like it's not the thing in the water that's scary. It's just simply the water itself that's scary.
So here we go. Oh boy, here's a big twist here. And this is what I'm saying. I think Nolan had just like the perfect allotment of like if he did one more twist, he would have lost people, I feel. If he did one more, I think he would have risked losing people.
I mean, I got to admit, when I first watched the movie at like 15 years old, it did kind of lose me a little bit. The clone thing, especially.
But I'm saying at least again on that rewatch, everything holds up. I guess is what I'm saying.
Everything holds up, and I feel like that's what saves the movie is the fact that everything does track so well. I feel like if you did the exact same movie with the exact same twists, but the twist didn't hold up, then this movie would be messy as hell. It's just the fact that the rewatches of this movie are so airtight that people kind of go back to this movie so fondly.
Yeah. So right now, the whole Caldwell reveal is, I think it's so genius and so twisted. Like this is they have the revenge really just twist the knife in there, man.
There's kind of like a Sweeney Todd element to this.
Something very sadistic about it too. Where the idea here's the thing: there's something. Remember, here's the trippy thing. So Cutter, very early in the movie, said when basically trying to replicate the transported man trick, said you're going to have to wait for him to retire, or you're going to have to use a double. So of course, both of them at this stage, they were essentially retired. He did his last trick, and that eventually he was killed on stage. Therefore, he's kind of free to be Lord Caldwell, and he's about to be killed. And both of them have retired in a sense. It also includes death. Oddly enough, they're both retired via death. And again, they're both kind of residing to these miserable fates they've kind of set themselves down upon, and of course, you have the underlining class victory too of no one's going to believe Borden as he says at the end of the scene, like, "Hey, he's alive! He's alive!" And it's the idea that one, he's a prisoner right now, so no one's going to believe him. But secondly, it's the fact of this guy's Caldwell. He has a fancy name. Obviously, if you look at his face, you're going to be able to tell very easily he's the dead guy. But no one's going to question the elitist name.
Right.
And again, it's kind of like there's a sense of twisted chivalry. And again, you tell me where you come down on this, but it's like there's this twisted chivalry, and he's raising the enemy's daughter. But again, it's like now the life that Angier's leading is again the life that Angier is leading right now. Again, like after the whole like he's lost his humanity in the sense like is he doing it purely out of spite or out of like any shred of human decency of like I've taken his daughter away. That's kind of revenge, but also I should look after his daughter. I
100% think it's out of spite.
Purely out of spite, no decency. It's purely out of spite.
I mean, I think if it was out of decency, then he would just take the daughter and not rub it in his face.
Yeah,
you know
right.
What I mean?
Yeah. But seriously, how twisted is it though? Like, I'm going to take care. He said, "You took someone I loved away from you, and I did the same." It's like, oh god.
Right.
This is where Michael Caine he's tremendous here. What he's doing, he's just like, looking at. One, he's come back from the dead. Like, I stood over your body. I stood over your corpse. This is just this is him coming back as the moral center here, saying, "I know about getting your hands dirty, but this is not what I meant."
Right.
He sees the girl here and he's like, "You took the girl's father away from her. What's wrong with you?" Also, a big thing that kind of glazed over the fact that he finally got Borden's secret. Borden finally gave him his secret, and he just tore it up because he just needed to get it. He didn't even look at it.
Yeah, that's great.
Which had he looked at it, he would have saved himself some trouble later. But he ripped it up. and threw it in his rival's face that I have your secret and your daughter and your life. And
again, Dragon, a lot of this movie, a lot of like the where the characters end up in this movie, it kind of comes down to that traditional like Vince Gilligan-esque pride. Pride is the fall.
By the way, this mansion, does it seem familiar to you at all?
Is it Wayne Manor?
No, it's not Wayne Manor.
Okay, what is it?
It's from, I believe, I think you've talked about this movie before. There Will Be Blood.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
You can tell by the tiled floor. See, it's from two movies. It's from There Will Be Blood and The Big Lebowski. It has like this black and white kind of checker pattern on the floor. That's how you can tell.
Right. I can kind of tell in this from the staircase, actually, because
yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood, he kind of does that slow take up the staircase where he's just screaming like, "Bastard in a basket! Bastard in a basket!"
Yeah, so this, I think, might be Christian Bale's most beautiful scene in the movie here. It's so sad here, just what he's... Again, especially on the rewatch, again, the whole two brothers element of all here was just apologizing profusely to his brother, knowing he's gonna die here. Because remember, the idea is like he ruined. This brother essentially blames himself for killing Sarah. He blames himself for making Sarah so unhappy because any time he was with Sarah, he wasn't the one in love with her, so he kind of drove her to suicide. So he blames himself. And look at this here, other Christian Bale, where he's saying goodbye. He's supposed to be this silent character, but at the one moment he just chokes up and he has to say goodbye to his brother. It's this little moment. It's such a well acted scene. Again, with himself too. Just,
right.
And bouncing the ball, passing the ball on to him.
Christian Bale is a very generous scene partner with himself.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds terrible when you phrase it like that, but yes. No, but seriously, that's a beautiful, heartbreaking scene. It's like the last goodbye.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Okay, so Dragon, clear this up for me because I like. Which one of the Bordens is the one that gets executed?
Now, this is what I was speaking to her. I'm pretty sure I know which one it is. Okay, so if I'm right, given there's one very specific line that I think clarifies exactly who is who here. So this is the Fallon one, the one who was in love with Olivia. He's the one who gets hanged here.
Okay.
Because again, you know this because later on the other one says I loved Sarah, which implies he's the one he loves Sarah and he had the daughter. So essentially the one who gets reunited with the kid is actually the father. And the one here, based on the fact of that, and also again, because remember he was being, as I said, when he's being led away, he said he apologized for Sarah because again he was the one who kind of made Sarah unhappy because he wasn't
right. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm like 90%. I'm like 85-90% certain that's got to be the case.
Okay.
Of course, here we lead to the final demise and that kind of that backstage area here. We're putting the device away and again, we have both demises of our guys here very well kind of parallel, very well intercut with here, where they're both kind of meeting their demises at the hands of each other, technically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh man, this is just like, to me, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna wager this might be the most perfect revenge movie I've ever seen. It might be.
I mean, yeah, just in terms of like how it all kind of like falls into place and. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of complexity to it. There's a lot more going on to it than just the revenge. But I mean, yeah, it is very airtight in the way it's presented for sure.
Also, I like how I don't know if I've missed it or not. Because looking at my notes here, but I loved how we kind of pulled the kind of the Nolan thing here, where we kind of did that Lee Smith editing where we showed. Michael Caine walking up to Jess, which of course would lead to the scene that we saw at the very start of the movie when he's showing her the trick. When he waves to her. So the idea is like we're seeing a scene out of sequence there. We're building up that there's a happy ending that's going to happen here, folks, but we have to get to it. Oh, by the way, a little fun fact. I don't know if this was just someone just kind of know. I don't know how intentional this is. I love to think it's purely intentional. You'll notice the initials of our characters: Alfred Borden, A.B., and essentially it's Robert. It's Robert Angier, R.A. Abra.
Abra, nice.
What's the last words here? Abracadabra.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, what's great, now by the way, on the rewatch, completely goes, where when he's walking up, when he sees the guard he was messing with earlier, and he says, "Are you watching closely?" That's the "Are you watching closely?" that starts the movie off. So again, that's what I'm saying. We're linking up where we see Cutter walking up to the girl, and again, we're setting up that very last scene. We're seeing that, and we see the hats and everything. It's all coming, it's all linking up.
I mean, this is a film where it's like it's kind of like how some of my favorite albums do this too, where it's a film that's almost kind of like, cyclical in nature, where okay, I'm gonna go all like album nerd on you for a second, Dragon, so don't mind me. So the whole like, are you watching closely thing, it kind of reminds me of how Pink Floyd does The Wall. Yes, we're gonna talk about The Wall because nostalgia critic and all that, but so the album The Wall, Dragon, I'm not talking about anything with the movie, I'm just talking about the album here. Literally the first words you hear in The Wall, the album, are spoken, "This is where," right? Just the words, "This is where." Or no, I'm sorry, it's the words, "Is this where? Is this where?" And then at the very end of the album, you hear the words, "We came in." So it ties together like, "Is this where we came in?" And so basically what I'm saying here is the the whole are you watching closely, and everything that's kind of like thrown out with the reveals right at the very beginning, and Michael Caine's character and the birds and everything. It is very much kind of like that, where it's showing sort of like the beginning of the movie, just like in plain sight. It's just everything is kind of like wrapping back around. If you watch the end of this movie and then immediately turn it back on again, you'll feel like you've kind of like perfectly cycled back to the beginning.
All right, so real quick, so what he's saying over this scene now is just two men. It's not. It's never easy. Like two men sharing one life is kind of ways. I love the deeper meaning to that scene, where basically the idea he and his brother both live half a life, but together. Therefore, they kind of live. They present themselves as this one person. But also, I think the deeper message is that Angier and Bourne were also two men, living one life. They were both very much kind of like they were both living these half lives as well. I think it's the other half of the message we're getting there too. So again, they're both kind of linked by the one life, and we want to be a magician, and we saw what they did in getting there. So of course now we're seeing the big, again, kind of our big kind of, again, I love that Nolan saved this for he knew it was going to be the biggest buy of the movie, so he saved it for the very end, the whole clone idea. So again, I love that it's a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of the unexplainable, which again, he's more than earned in the movie.
Yeah.
So I'm sure. I don't have a problem with it. I think so. I imagine some people might.
Like I said, when I was younger, I did have a problem with it, but honestly, now that I'm older, I don't. It's one of those weird things where it's like, you think with me being younger, I'd be able to suspend my disbelief a little bit more. But no, when I'm older now, I kind of just accept the magical realism of it a lot more than I did.
Of course, the bigger question is like, am I the man in the box or the one who comes back? So that's the question he keeps asking himself, where he's lost track of who he is. Is he the copy? Or
that's
is it the
terrifying. That's just a fucking terrifying existential crisis, man.
So it was even creepier in the book. Essentially, in the book, what happens is they didn't operate at all like this as it does in the movie. It wasn't precisely a clone. It was your essence gets transferred, and you literally get transported from point A to point B into a new body, but the other one is a husk that just disintegrates. It's a dead husk.
Oh, God.
And it also was a thing where Borden, he basically screwed up the trick, and therefore like the Lord looked a lot different because he was a sickly version because the trick got interrupted. It was really creepy. Speaking of the book, I got to mention this. And Nolan, all this great third act stuff, basically for this Shyamalanian twist, a twist that Shyamalan that should take notes on. This one, a twist that puts Shyamalan to shame. This one, what's really great is that Nolan was presented a book deal because he had the idea saying many times when a movie comes out based on a book, they re-release the book. They could put the cover of the movie on it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
They do that sort of thing, or maybe make some alterations. The point being, they do a re-release of the book. And Nolan, that's a big book deal. That's a lot of money. Nolan turned it down because he didn't want anyone to know how he was going to tackle the ending.
I like that.
And for this whole all the third act stuff we're doing here, probably the whole Caldwell onward would be my guess, but you know.
Uh-huh.
But seriously, this is just fantastic. The whole like he's gotten his hands dirty with 100 deaths. He's lost himself entirely. He lost the point of the revenge at this point. I think is a lot. It's kind of a big Nolan message. He's been doing since Memento. The whole like, what is the point of revenge if you can't remember it? In this case, what is the point of revenge if you?
Batman as well.
Yes, yes. So again, I love, of course, the message and the connect to the filmmaking. Basically, the last words of Angier, like, what was the point of it all? And he basically says it's for the escapism of it all. I think that's kind of Nolan's answer as to like the whole connect between the filmmaking and the magic. It's all about the audience, giving the audience an experience, reminding them that we live in a miserable world. And again, if you peek behind the curtain, we see all the death and all the sad stuff that kind of went behind these two guys. But again, when they were on stage, they were happy, or at least they were making showing people something impossible that kind of made him wonder, inspire him maybe.
So yeah, goddamn. Just I'm sorry to repeat myself here, but just it's so impressive how we literally see the end of the movie just kind of like played out before our very eyes at the start of it, and literally the rest of the movie is just kind of like this sleight of hand, like, hey, look over here. Don't pay attention to what you just saw. Pay attention to this. Mm-hmm. To the point where it's like you almost forget the start of the movie. You forget these details.
Of course, I love that, with the whole link up at the very end, the happy ending, the father reunited with the daughter, and of course Michael Caine involved. It's very much kind of the first, it's Nolan's first return from death reunion with Christian Bale and Michael Caine. It's his first, and of course at the very end of the movie too, a nice heartwarming, like, oh, look, he's giving the nod and everything. It's nice.
Uh-huh.
Of course, in the very close in the movie here is kind of Nolan's acknowledgement that yes, it's it's the tale. Basically, this is the true magic trick of the whole movie, and and basically you can't figure it out, but it was carried out like a grand performance. That's the idea. Like I carried the whole movie out like a grand performance, so I left you like something you can't explain. Because the whole challenge of the movie is you'll look for something, but you can't find it, as he's kind of saying over the last moment of the movie here. You're not going to be able to solve the trick, and that's the thing that he's saying. The whole cloning thing you will not be able to solve, but just bask in the whole performance that you did see and that everything else that did right in the movie. So sure. Also a little thing. From what I understand, the only movie Nolan's ever done that has a song playing at the end of it with Analyzer.
It's very distracting. I mean, it's a good song. I like Tom York. Tom York, of course, the lead singer of Radiohead. This is one of his single songs or solo songs, I should say. But yeah, it is really distracting to not have like traditional Hans Zimmer score over a Nolan credits roll. I will say that it kind of sticks out.
Well, Hans Zimmer didn't do this one.
I just say Hans Zimmer. Like I know Hans Zimmer done every Nolan movie. I'm just saying him kind of like he's the go-to guy.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, right, so final thoughts, Dragon. What do you got?
Final thoughts for me. Again, I think. This film is an evolution of Nolan exploring a revenge movie, like he did with, Memento, and I think it's just kind of evolving since. I think he's gotten even better at it. Memento was a solid, like kind of a commentary on revenge and the futility of revenge, one could argue, and I feel we've gotten even better, more artful with it here. He's gotten even better. It's Nolan building. It's kind of the Nolan building blocks of narrative structure and how you kind of approach it in a story. It had, in all fairness, it did have the bases loaded with a really solid source material. I want to make it clear that he did make it very much his own. He did, but again, he kind of hit the home run in that regard. He kind of adapted the story, but also kind of made it absolutely a Christopher Nolan movie in every sense of the word, which is so tricky to talk about because again, it is based off a book. But again, it just feels so much like Nolan came up with this from the ground up, and that's kind of a magic trick within itself, in a sense. He truly did make it sing, and it kind of gets a standing ovation in a sense of a magic trick. I think it's one of his best movies. I'm not going to say the best, but I think it's absolutely one of the best ones that he's done in terms of narrative. Again, I'll admit, rewatchability keeps on one some people have said very famously the mark of a good movie is one that keeps you coming back, one you can rewatch and come away with new things. And I feel this movie absolutely kind of fits that moniker. I think it's excellent. I think it's expertly kind of plotted and edited, and I think the whole thing comes together very well, very much like a very precise, very stupendous magic trick. I couldn't be more impressed with The Prestige, quite frankly.
Yeah, I definitely love this one. I think it is in the top 3 of Nolan movies. Dragon, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's like I love Nolan's Batman movies, but they're not even in the top 3 for me. I mean, that's how good of a filmmaker Nolan is, I think.
Well, let me be clear in my case. Like I'm gonna have to put the Batman movies probably at the top for Nolan. That's just me though. So it's
Well, yeah, as someone who, is someone who doesn't like live and breathe Batman, I can respect his Batman movies a great deal, but I would say Dark Knight is a solid like number 4, right behind Prestige, Inception, and Dunkirk.
I'm saying like you have like Begins and Dark Knight, then you'd have that. I'm saying the battle for me is you have Begins, Dark Knight, and not in that particular order. But I'm saying
Yeah,
Begins, Dark
I
Knight,
was about to say, like, please tell me there's a little bit of a gap. Like, I understand
there
Begins,
is there. Look there.
but
There is. I'm saying then you get into the whole like whole Inception. Basically, for me, it's probably Inception, Prestige. Then I mean Dunkirk's great, but it's experimental. It's great though.
uh-huh.
That's what I'm saying. Point being, like those in the top 5. If I'm being a betman, there's probably in the top 5.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I'm very interested. Like, I will say, I really don't think this is for me as great as Dunkirk is, but they're both brilliant movies on different levels. I just think Dunkirk is a lot more direct in what it's trying to do, and like I said, Dragon, I really do feel like the only edge that this has over, or that Dunkirk has over this, is the fact that we do have kind of like some of that, some of that relationship drama that we don't have in Dunkirk. But I mean, beyond that, it's very neck and neck, and I am interested to see where Inception lies in this sort of like 3-horse race for my number 1 Nolan film, and I won't really know for sure until I go back and rewatch that. So it's kind of where we're at, and kind of sets the stage for sort of a cliffhanger leading into the season finale for Nolan-Vember. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see where things land for me there. All right. Well, folks, we've come to the end of our story. Or is it only the beginning? Don't forget to check your watch before we make our disappearing act. We'll be back before the top tumbles on the next installment of Nolan-Vember. Womp. Womp.
Are you watching closely?